Then we will tell you about this as geopolitics shifts, and you and I can agree that we are in a period of some serious uncertainty. Global markets are struggling to make sense of it all and basically to settle and understand what the new lay of the land is, especially after the election of the US President Donald Trump and him having taken office. The uncertainty largely driven by new trade policies under the new US President Donald Trump has had a noticeable impact on investor confidence. Being plugged into the global markets, South Africa is not spared any of that uncertainty. According to experts, this uncertainty is affecting South African equities and the rand, creating both challenges and opportunities for investors. We will unpack all of those phenomena with Temuso Musi, who is an investment analyst at 361 Asset Management and is also part of the PPS Managed Fund Investment Team. That conversation coming up at about 7:20. Now, this is one of those that, issues that you and I have to grapple with some fair amount of seriousness. According to the State of South African Fathers 2024 report, a shocking number of children are raised without their fathers. This leads, of course, to a variety of issues such as emotional struggles, financial hardship, and societal consequences, a wide range of societal consequences. The situation also brings adverse consequences for children and their mothers who are left to handle the financial, emotional, and physical challenges alone. We'll speak to Professor Kopano Ratele, who is a psychologist, to just unpack the phenomenon of fatherlessness. The backdrop of it all is that a few years ago, the State of the World's Fathers showed that women disproportionately shoulder the financial responsibility of raising children, including those who are not their biological children. Experts point to factors such as high unemployment and feelings of inadequacy as contributing to fathers' disengagement and perhaps creating a cycle of absent fatherhood that is hard to break. So, we always talk about this closer to Father's Day, but we have this report that is talking about fatherlessness in South Africa. This is the State of South African Fathers 2024 report. So, this is one of those areas. It's an area of life that deals with personal relations. So it's not like we can chant down Babylon walls and demand some kind of policy, some kind of decree or action, by an authority or an agency. It's kind of hard to demand that. So to have it by decree that would help to keep families together and cement the role of both parents in raising their children. So it falls upon you and I to counsel each other. Where is family life breaking such that so many children are growing up without their fathers, and how do we fix it? I'd love to hear from you, your perspectives. This is not a session for us to bash one another, but rather to give nuances and insights from lived experience and observation and see how we counsel one another. Where is family life breaking such that so many children are growing up without their fathers, and how do we fix that situation? I'd love to hear from you. The number to dial 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, please send those to 061 410 4107. Of course, we have all of your regulars locked and loaded for you, and Musa with your news updates every half hour, Rob Byrne with your traffic every 15 minutes or so, Zaikan is watching your sport throughout the morning, Ndauling Lechela has your economics, business and market news covered, as well as Sipho Mantula with your Africa update just before 8 a.m. In fact, Sipho will, among other stories, tell you about the DRC taking Rwanda to the African Court on Human and People's Rights. The arguments were heard yesterday, so you can look out to Sipho giving you an update on that. And as I said, your calls on 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The first hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
Yeah, let's head on over to Ann Musa for that. Good morning to you, Ann.
Good morning, Thulas. Welcome back.
Yeah,
no
it's good to be
notice
back.
given, nothing, but yeah.
Yeah, there was a bit of a hiccup.
Okay.
Yeah, these things happen, and I couldn't come through yesterday. But nevertheless, we are here. I see that the lead story on your side is the repatriation of the mortal remains of the soldiers that died in the DRC.
Yes, and the ceremony and the memorial service will be taking place this evening for the 14 soldiers that was killed in the DRC, and we know that there were some delays with regards to the repatriation process, but the handover ceremony is expected to take place this evening at Swartkop Air Force Base at 6 p.m. There was a delay. It was supposed to be held earlier this morning at around about 9 o'clock, but due to the Commander-in-Chief, which is President Cyril Ramaphosa, addressing the National Assembly, that actually leading to the delay. So he will be leading the handover of the mortal remains of the soldiers. And in other stories, the ANC in the Northwest is proposing to merge Ditsobotla municipality with neighbouring ones, and this is through the Municipal Structures Act. Over the years, the embattled entity we know has been experiencing persistent political and administrative instability, which has severely affected service delivery. 4 suspects arrested for the torching of 51 Patco buses in Mpumalanga last month expected to appear in court, and 2 recently arrested suspects appeared in court yesterday and had their matter postponed to today, meaning that they will join their co-accused. And continued testimony of the alleged underworld boss Nafiz Modak in the Western Cape High Court. He is in the dock due to answer to the charge of murder of the top anti-gang unit detective Charles Kinnear. And copper theft still a major problem, and 6 City Power contract workers were arrested for copper theft. City Power is saying that 4 of the suspects were discovered in a tunnel while cutting burnt and intact copper, and the other 2 were found in possession of copper in a nearby vehicle. So some of the stories that we're focusing on this morning.
All right, and thank you for that. We'll be hearing from you a bit later on. That's Ann Musa there. She'll keep you updated on the news every half hour here on The Morning Brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, let's give you a sense of how your weather is looking on this Thursday. We start with one impact-based warning that has difficulty in navigation at sea is expected between Cape Columbine and Cape Agulhas from midday. The rest of your weather looks like this. Pretoria will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon with a minimum of 16 and a maximum of 32. Johannesburg will be fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 17 to 29. Mbombela, partly cloudy, becoming cloudy in the evening, 17 to 29. Polokwane, partly cloudy, 16 to 29. Mahikeng will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 20 to 33. Bloemfontein will be partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 21 to 36. Kimberley will be partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, 23 to 38. Cape Town will be partly cloudy, becoming cloudy by the afternoon, 19 to 26. George will be cloudy with scattered showers and rain, 19 to 23. Gqeberha will be cloudy with scattered showers and rain, 20 to 25. East London will be partly cloudy, becoming cloudy with isolated showers and thunderstorms, 19 to 25. Durban will be partly cloudy, 20 to 29. Richards Bay, partly cloudy, 21 to 30. And finally, Pietermaritzburg will see morning fog, otherwise partly cloudy, 17 to 30.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
The Buccaneers want to demonstrate that they are the reigning champions and nothing will stop them from marching on to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Bakaga have a different game plan to return to Hammanskraal with happy faces. This is the Nedbank Cup Round 16. Orlando Pirates FC tackles Baroka FC. This Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Community Safety and Transport Management, chaired by Honorable Freddy Sonakile, will host public hearings on Marine Oil Pollution Bill on the 14th February 2025 at Groot Mariko Community Hall in Ngakamudiri Molema District, Mogopa Community Hall near Venterstop in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Utlanang Community Hall at Christiana in Dr. Ruth Somuti Mompati, and Sutelong Community Hall in Bojanala District. All public hearings start at 10.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
20 minutes after 6, let's turn our attention to this story now. The former French president, Nicolas Sarkozy, has reportedly been fitted with an electronic tag for a year after being found guilty of corruption. According to reports, Sarkozy began wearing the monitor on February 7 and will only be allowed out of his home at certain times. The politician, who was president of France from 2007 to 2012, was found guilty in December last year for illegal attempts to secure favors from a judge. Let's speak now to Professor David Munyai, who is the director for the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, but monitors these developments quite consistently. Good morning to you, Prof, once again, and thank you for your time. Please map for us and perhaps timeline for us Sarkozy's spectacular fall from grace.
I think this was one of the most celebrated leader in France in the post-Cold War era. He came in with great ideas of trying to reshape France and put France right at the center, particularly on his relationship with Africa. He tried to reform at a time when Africa itself was gaining a momentum with transformation from OAU to AU. However, he failed to live up to some of the key issues and tenets of democracy or good governance. In the end, he felt like most leaders in a very embarrassing to French people and to himself, that all what he has been talking about in terms of democracy, himself never lived up to it.
So the charges have to do with influence peddling, trying to influence a judge, but critically also has to do with illegal financing of his election campaign, including, allegations that he received financing from the late Muammar Gaddafi.
So many cases that has been investigated. However, this one is the most critical, where he was found guilty. And it sends a message that some of the people that we thought were the leaders of democracy, in the end, such as Tony Blair, he's not the only one, former colonial powers. In the end, the peddling and advising people such as Paul Kagame with all the genocide that is taking place in the DRC. So I think it's a learning for both those who are in Africa as well as in Europe, that we should not believe in what we hear and see. In the end, it all ends in tears, as we see with Sarkozy.
It ends in tears. And of course, Prof, he's not the first president, former president, to be found guilty of a crime. Jacques Chirac set that precedent, but was given a suspended sentence in 2011. What does that tell us about French society and their attitude and stance towards issues such as corruption, including, the degree to which people who hold powerful positions are not really untouchable?
I think that's the most positive part of their democracy. No one is bigger than the law. And it's not something that is practiced in most places, whether it's in the US or in our own domestic politics. So many high-level people get away with murder. So in this case, it shows that the French, with all their ills, they're able to live up to tenets of democracy, and they showcase with Sarkozy in a very spectacular way that the whole world is watching. And it also sends a message to the current that you have to be careful when you're dealing with public funds, when you're dealing with issues that are quite critical to the nation.
Yeah, and the allegations that he may have received funding from the late Muammar Gaddafi, that's just something else, isn't it? For a long period of time, Muammar Gaddafi was a persona non grata as far as the European countries, the West, is concerned. But meanwhile, back at the ranch, it would seem there was this relationship that was flourishing.
And he's not the only one. Quite a number of leaders in Europe, did receive not just Muammar Gaddafi's money. We can talk about Nigeria's missing billions for Bacha that went into Europe and never came in any way. At the time when the EU is talking about anti-corruption, good governance, double standards that are applied when it comes to Africa, and most of our people just accept whatever that comes from EU, that they speak about one issue, human rights, yet they're at the forefront of committing violence, as in Gaza. Yet when they come to Africa, they tend to be champions of some of these issues, while they don't live up to it. Gaddafi in particular, they went on to encourage him to deal away with nuclear and all sorts of other issues. In the end, they killed him openly, and Europe and France in particular played a critical role in this regard.
So just lastly, Prof, and I'd like you to just reflect, what lessons should we be taking from the way that the French have dealt with this case in relation to what we are seeing playing itself in South Korea, in relation to the president who's now been impeached, but also within the African context, accountability beyond, holding office?
These are good lessons for the African continent. To look into it in terms of no one is bigger than the law, and the application to the fullest of the law itself, and follow-ups and showcase also the lack of what normally takes place in our own societies, where individuals of this high level, the moment they are accused of anything, it becomes politicized, using all sorts of his ethnicity and all other factors. So in this case, I think it went well, and it's a good lesson for us to see.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. That's Professor David Munyai. He is the director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Let me take a call and maybe one or two of your WhatsApp voice notes. Let's speak to Naidu in KZN. Naidu, good morning to you. You know, there are days, Naidu, before you get to your point, there are days when I'm like, enough about this Trump guy now. I want to avoid talking about this guy. No. But he makes it hard to avoid talking about him. What's on your mind this morning?
It's hard to get through when your show is so busy. Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, man. I just wanted to offer a comment, man. I think South Africa, they've got the wrong end of the stick when it comes to the Trump and Afrikaner issue, because if you look at Trump, he's a businessman at heart. So when he's building a business, basically, he's doing deals. So he wants the best people for the job. The best people for farming and for food security would be the Afrikaners because it's in their blood. That's their passion.
You think so? You think that's his interest to boost agricultural production in the United States in this way?
Thulasizwe, no matter how much money a country has, no matter how much wealth, if you haven't got food, you cannot eat money.
Yeah, that's true.
You cannot eat money.
Yeah.
Look at our towns and our suburbs. It's full of rape, murder, full destruction. So when you're building a business, you want the best people for the job. So he's basically recruiting the people that can help him build his country.
Sure.
You understand?
Yeah.
So that's basically, that's the bottom line. No matter, because Afrikaners, they have to farm. It's their passion.
Yeah.
And most of them, I have friends there. Most of them, money is just a side effect of what they do. They farm. And they're very good at it. So that's basically what I think Trump is doing.
But why is he not recruiting black South African farmers in the same way? Because you hear it from black South African farmers that they are just as capable. Because
if you look at it, that face value, I mean, you would say, you know what? I want to do this quick. I want to do this urgently.
Yeah.
I need the best people right now. Who are the best people? The Buddha.
Quick solutions. Thank you for that. That's Naidu in KZN there with an interesting take on this whole Trump and offering asylum, whatever you may call it, for South Africa's Afrikaner community, which he says is under persecution. By the way, I did see that communication from the U.S. Embassy in South Africa, basically just giving guidelines and a website to say if you want to take advantage of this process that has been opened up by the executive order of the U.S. president. Here's the information. You can find it on this website. So it does seem that the United States is forging ahead with that program. 6:30, let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the SANDF says the repatriation ceremony and memorial service for fallen soldiers in the DRC will only be held at 6 o'clock this evening, after earlier scheduling the program to begin at 9 o'clock in the morning. The Northern Cape High Court has found 27-year-old Itumeleng Machabe guilty of the murder of an 11-year-old minor who was kidnapped and raped in Kimberley in 2022. And the ACDP leader in Parliament, Reverend Kenneth Mishwe, says his party supports the South African government's intention to send a delegation to engage with the Trump administration. It follows the signing of an executive order by President Donald Trump, which might complicate trade relations with South Africa. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Getting a bit heavy on the N3 North, getting through Galulis for a turn out towards the airport. It's a stationary truck just as you come off the N3 and you pick up the sort of N12 R24 out towards the sort of Edenvale and airport split. So we'll watch that. Traffic coming up from Bedford through Galulis is starting to get really busy. A lot of traffic building up around four ways. All those traffic light issues causing delays already. Winnie Mandela inbound from Danefern, Winnie Mandela to Leslie. That light's been down forever. Vic Coppin as you come across from Winnie Mandela to Main, Cedar Road in from Danefern, North Ridings, Vidkoppen Road, President Fushia, Malabongwe. Those lights are out. If you're coming in from Kaya Sand, hardly a light working along Malabongwe, so a lot of traffic noticeable there again today. It's a blasting day between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. The N3 will be closed this afternoon from 2:30 until 3 p.m. A 30-minute full closure between Key Ridge and Hammanskraal. Go before 2:30, before the closure, or go probably closer to 3:30 once the debris has been cleared. The backlog has been the road has been reopened and the backlog's got through, so just sort of avoid 2:30 to 3. That would be the really key time. And Cape Town, fairly busy on the N2 this morning, queuing up from the airport through to Mowbray Main Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you. So SuperSport United, the first team over the line as far as the quarterfinals of the Nedbank Cup are concerned.
And it was such a last-minute thing. I literally thought Gavin Hunt's his heart rate monitor was just
edge
going
of your seat stuff.
edge of your seat stuff, and they did it. What a thing for SuperSport United to become the first team advancing into the quarterfinals of the 2024-25 Nedbank Cup. They edged Cape Town Spurs 2-1 over 120 minutes at the Lucas Moripa Stadium last night. Let's hear from United coach Gavin Hunt.
Good performance again, and then going a goal down, we had a fight, and then obviously it doesn't fall, and they sit in and. They've got a lot of experience in their side. They've got a lot of guys who played a lot of football, so they've got a lot of know-how, and they sat in and they made it difficult for us, and obviously the turnover is always going to be important for them, which we handled a little bit. We had one or two moments where we were a bit scary, but we had a lot of opportunities around the box, and we've got to be a little bit better, but hey, we got through, and that's the main thing.
Now, elsewhere, James Tarkowski lashed in an incredible 98-minute equaliser as Everton, they had a 2-2 draw with Liverpool in the last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. Now, when the dust settles, Liverpool still sit 7 points clear at the top, although Arne Slot was sent off for his complaints against referee Michael Oliver. In the meantime, a stoppage time penalty by substitute Gustav Nilsson secured Club Brugge a 2-1 home win against Atalanta in the first leg of their Champions League knockout phase playoff. And cricket, the Proteas put up 352 runs on the board against Pakistan, and that was thanks to solid knocks from Heinrich Klaasen on 87, Matthew Britska on 83 and Temba Bavuma on 82, but it still wasn't enough as Pakistan's Salman Ali Agha on 134 and Mohammad Rizwan on 122 made light work of the chase, reaching the target with an over to spare. And more cricket, England's tour of India ended with another heavy defeat. They suffered a 3-0 one-day international series loss. They were bowled out for 214 in 34.2 overs to suffer a 142-run defeat, and that was in Ahmedabad. And tennis action, the fifth seed Elena Rybakina has eased past Rebecca Stramkova 7-6-6-2 to book her place in the quarterfinals of the Qatar Open. And more women's tennis action, Iga Swiatek reaching the quarterfinals, but she was taken the full distance by Linda Noskova of the Czech Republic. 6-7, 6-4, 6-4 was her victory. And golf, Jordan Wessels had a superb front nine in the second round of the South African Amateur Stroke Play Championship taking place at the Mossel Bay Golf Club, and it helped him to a 5-under par 67 and a 3-stroke lead at the halfway mark. And finally, global tennis legend Roger Federer and Springbok captain Siya Kolisi have teamed up to promote the School Readiness Initiative, which was launched in 2019. The initiative's goal is to give disadvantaged children a strong start in education with Federer and Kolisi's partnership. Now, this foundation is based in Johannesburg, with Federer, the 20-time Grand Slam champion, believing sport imparts valuable life lessons and teaches essential values.
We both come from a background that we promote sports as a great thing in life, because I think it teaches you all the valuable lessons that we have to go through in life. Is winning, losing, camaraderie, team player like Sia was me, or is me as an individual, but relying heavily on my team and the path you take, becoming a professional athlete, and just living to those rules, make some sacrifices along the way, but good sacrifices, because there's so much that sports can really teach you.
And that's how we wrap up sports. There at the top of the hour, we'll bring you more. I'm Zai Khan on the Morning Brief.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Let's check in with Ntauling Lechela for that. Good morning to you, Ntauling. U.S. inflation is picking up pace. That's not good news.
Not at all, Thulasizwe. Morning and welcome back. We missed
Thank
you
you.
yesterday.
It's good to be back.
So inflation really going in the wrong direction. In January, prices accelerated 0.5% from December. And on an annual basis, prices rose 3%. Looking at core inflation that excludes energy and food costs, that accelerated to 3.3% above market expectations. Now, last month's print was fueled by price increases in shelter, food and non-alcoholic beverages. The print further provides incentive for the Fed to hold the line on interest rates. The report really spooking investors to us, with Josh Jama, investment strategy analyst at ClearBridge Investments, even saying we are at the end of the rate cut cycle. Markets, however, are now pricing in a cut in September. This is very different from last month's expectations, where market analysts were pricing in cuts in June or July. Interestingly, though, Fed Chair Powell urged caution when interpreting the CPI print, suggesting that it's not a clear-cut indicator of future monetary policy decisions, especially as the labor market remains resilient and growth stable. Quite a different outlook to what he's been preaching before.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It will also be interesting, that interplay and relationship between the Fed and the new U.S. president, who previously had said that he believes they should have more of a say in some of their decisions. But nevertheless, let's move on. Talk to me about company news. Heineken tops analysts' expectations, and you're saying they've delivered upbeat sales and profit growth.
That's right, Thulas. Now, the world's second largest brewer reporting strong financial results for 2024. Profit increasing 8.9%, beating expectations. The company's South African operations played a significant role in this growth, with popular brands like Savannah and Bernini delivering upbeat results. Heineken's global CEO, Dolf van den Brink, described the results as solid and expects the company to continue growing this year. Now, Heineken's revenue decreased by 1.2% due to currency effects, but the company's net revenue before exceptional items increased by 5% to 30 billion euros. The company invested heavily in its operations, focusing on key markets like South Africa, Brazil, and Mexico. In South Africa, Heineken's revenue grew by mid-single digits, with beer volumes increasing by low single digits. The company has completed its integration of Distel into its local operations and says that this positions the group as a strong challenger in the local market.
All right, Dowling, please give us our first update of markets for the morning.
So inflation concerns weighing on markets. That hotter than expected US CPI print knocking U.S. markets ending mostly in the red overnight, with the Dow Jones shedding the most, down 0.5%. The mood, however, quite different here back at home, with markets recovering. Closing yesterday's session in the green, the all-share gained just over 0.4%, this being boosted by the industrials, which are up 1%. The rand, in the meantime, remaining quite steady. We saw it trade above the 1850 mark yesterday, but it's ticked below that level, now at 1847 to the greenback. Over in Asia, stocks really making gains despite jitters around monetary policy and trade tariffs as well.
That's Ntauleng Lechela there. She always has her eye on the money. She'll be back with a second update for the morning, and that's coming up just after 7:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
The Yellow Guys have a top-class plan to play elite rugby to remain in the top 5. But second-place Giants, the Red and Blacks are undoubtedly chasing the first position. This is the top 14. Clermont-Auvergne collides with Stade Thulasizwe on Sunday, 16 February at 10 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The year has kicked off, and if you are like most people, you've spent more time researching resolutions than actually starting. Gym? Meal prep? Meditation? Still deciding? Luckily, getting your car covered online with Santam is faster than picking a resolution to stick to. It only takes 2 minutes. To switch, visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's move on to this story now. The Transnet National Ports Authority says it has made a significant move to enhance the economic potential of Richards Bay by signing 2 major terminal operator agreements. According to the authority, these agreements will lead to the development of South Africa's first liquefied natural gas import terminal in the Richards Bay precinct. The authority says this initiative strengthens the region's logistical capabilities and aligns with national energy and economic goals. Let's speak now to Phyllis Difeto, who is the acting chief executive of Transnet National Ports Authority. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. Why is this the development of the country's first liquefied natural gas import terminal so significant?
Good morning to the listeners and good morning to you, Thulasizwe. Wonderful moment to be with you in this morning brief. As we've indicated, I am very much excited about this development. The port of Richards Bay, we have witnessed it on Monday, where we were signing the 2 critical terminal operator agreements. And if you can just allow me, Thulasizwe,
Sure.
just to explain that as the Transnet National Ports Authority, we are mandated by the National Ports Act to provide infrastructure along the port system. And you might know that we are managing about 8 commercial ports in South Africa. And they run along 3,000 kilometers on the coastline. So Richards Bay is just one of them. These key projects were developed as we followed through what we call the Port Development Framework Plans. And through that, we have identified a need to develop major LNG terminal infrastructure. And that is not only for the Port of Richards Bay, but we have identified 3 ports, the Port of Umngoga, the Port of Richards Bay, and the Port of Saldanha. Now, coming very closer now to the developments around the Port of Richards Bay, talking about the terminal operator agreements that we have signed. In December 2022, TNPA, that is Transnet National Ports Authority, issued a request for proposal for the appointment of the terminal operator to design, develop, finance, construct, operate, and maintain an LNG terminal at the South Dunes precinct in the Port of Richards Bay. And it's for the concession period of 25 years. This process, and I just want for the listeners to understand, it went through clear governance processes in line with Section 56 of the National Ports Act. The process led us to an appointment of a consortium between VOPEC and Transnet Pipelines as the preferred bidders for the development of the now dubbed Zululand Energy Terminal. The LNG terminal in Richards Bay will enable the construction of the gas to power for both the interested independent power producers and Eskom, as outlined in the South Africa's energy plans. And we have seen already a progress in terms of the development around the completion or the initiation of this project. And I can just indicate for this Z terminal operator agreement that we have signed, we have seen now outlining the processes in phase 1, where there is an aim to complete in 2028. And this includes a 170,000 cubic meters floating storage unit and an offshore regasification facility with a capacity of 2 million tons per annum of LNG.
So
Now,
what pain point does this liquefied natural gas terminal, what pain point will it respond to in terms of the country's energy mix and the just energy transition? Is this something that industry, the IPPs and others have been crying for?
Definitely. When I reflect on the market demand in South Africa for the LNG, the first thing that comes to my mind is that there are currently no LNG receiving terminals in South Africa. And out of the 170 available worldwide, only 11 are in Africa. So already, Thulasizwe, you can see the greatest need in South Africa to have a dedicated LNG terminal. So the introduction of this LNG in South Africa, with Richards Bay being the first in line, will play a crucial role in addressing the country's energy and electricity challenges by introducing additional gas-to-power-based electricity generation. SA has one importer, which brings the LNG via Mozambique. So TNPA, we have realized the need for LNG as an energy mix as the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy's policy position. And this strategy aligns to both the LNG commercial use and the decarbonization efforts.
But let's talk about the other project that you announced around the area of Richards Bay. This was in December last year. You were talking about developing a container terminal. How's that project going?
Oh, yeah, very interesting. We are also excited about that. It's the container handling facility at the port of Richards Bay. One thing I can tell you, Thulasizwe, is that as the authority, we do listen to the market. We listen to the customers and we listen to the industry. There have been a lot of requests to say, we do see few containers coming through the port of Richards Bay, and there is a need and there is a definitely growth that we're anticipating. And we went through our analysis, we went through our assessments, and we looked in terms of our port development frameworks, and we identified that indeed a container handling facility at the port of Richards Bay is a necessity. We went through the process as well, a very rigorous process where we have to adhere to the governance processes. Shortly, you will hear us again talking about the celebrations where we will be signing the terminal operator agreement for that container handling facility at the port of Richards Bay.
Still on track for it becoming operational in 2027?
We are still in track. We are making sure that we adhere to what we have promised, as we always maintain, saying always be on time, comply with the project plans, comply with the costs that are associated with that project, and make sure that you are on time.
Lastly, I know this doesn't fall within your domain, but it's part of the broader ecosystem of turning around Transnet and its governance. The part of the problems have been on the freight rail side of things, such that it affects such terminals as Richards Bay, which is privately run, but you guys provide the freight rail support for that. And we saw what happened when that was not functioning. My belief is that it's now starting to turn around. But also we've seen the impact on such entities as ArcelorMittal also being frustrated. Part of the reasons why they're saying they're closing their long steel plants has to do with the problems that have been there at Transnet Freight Rail. So all the work that you are doing, I suggest to you, around improving those ports will be significantly undermined if the freight rail system is not improved. What conversations are happening? Where do we stand? I believe you do sit on the exco of Transnet. What's the messaging there? What's changing, and is it changing rapidly enough to address the freight rail element?
Yeah, that is a very important question, and it's directed correctly to me, coming from the National Ports Authority, because as the landlord port, we have to make sure that whatever comes through the port system, it's not going to create congestion in the port and also within the city and the municipality around the port. I can assure you and assure the listeners, there are conversations that are happening amongst ourselves. And the benefit for South Africa, the way we are structured, is that we've got the rail, we've got the ports, we've got the pipeline, we've got the terminal operation within the one umbrella. So it makes it clear for us to be able to view the planning arrangement across the logistics system. So I can assure you, conversations are happening. From TNPA side, the contribution is making sure that we make available space for the tracking system.
Gotcha.
Because if you talk about the challenges on the logistics side for freight rail, we need to be ready for the trucks and make sure that we have enough parking area, for example, and the truck staging areas. And I can tell you now, there is great improvements. We were in Richards Bay on Mondays, celebrations. I didn't see all these chock-a-block trucks that were shown in the media platform. So things are really getting right.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That's Phyllis DeFito there, who is the acting chief executive of the Transnet National Ports Authority.
SAFM. guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, traffic lights across Joburg, major problems. Just got this tweet in saying Beyers Nordier at the N1, Beyers Nordier at Malope, Beyers Nordier at Easterhout, Beyers Nordier at Penduring, and Beyers Nordier at Judges. How's that for a whole route without traffic lights? Just up the road, Malabongwe, hardly a light working, Kaya Sam, right through the N1 to Stratham Park, Fourway, Cedar Road, Winnie Mandela, Witkoppen, Main Road. It's all traffic light outages as well, causing major problems, not only running late for work, but late to get the kids to school. That's becoming a really big issue on those commuting areas with no traffic lights. Just away from that, the N1 fairly slow this morning. Brockfontein down towards the New Road exit, and Pretoria a crash on the N1 running north, just up by the R21, so delay backing out from Botha Avenue side. North of KZN, northern parts of KZN, the N2 currently closed at Pongola. We had some delays earlier this morning, then traffic was moving through, and now the road is closed again. So if you need to get through Pongola Pitt Retief, maybe be a good idea to do that a little bit later today rather than go and sit in that traffic now. Cape Town, N1, fairly heavy from Brackenfell right through to Kuba. Get a change. N2 inbound, queuing at Khayelitsha to the R300, and then queues from the airport through to Mowbray Main Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned, and almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're in the private security industry, and by switching to OUTsurance, we save 785 rand a month. It's an extra tank of fuel, it's extra reward money that we pay our officers. When it comes to insurance, OUTsurance is our security company.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Defending champions are eager to display a top-class brand of football to emphasize why they are Wienerkusen, while the Bavarians are confident this is their season. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the Battle of Giants, Bayer Leverkusen FC versus Bayern München FC on Saturday, 15 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
5 minutes to 7. According to the State of South African Fathers 2024 report, a shocking number of children are raised without their fathers. This leads to a variety of issues such as emotional struggles, financial hardship, and societal consequences. Let's speak now to Professor Kopano Ratile, who is a professor at Stellenbosch University and one of the editors of the latest State of South African Fathers 2024, which came out last week. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. So, just give me a broad sense of what the factors are that have been identified in this latest State of South African Fathers report. What are some of the broad themes that account for such a high level of fatherlessness in this country?
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Thank you for having me. The numbers are going in the wrong direction. More and more children over the years. We've been tracking this at least with the help of the General Household Survey since 1996, but this is the third State of South Africa's Fathers report. So the numbers are going in the wrong direction. More children are living in households without their biological fathers. More children are living with what we call social fathers. We don't want to call them non-biological fathers because this is a broad category. So they live with older brothers, uncles to so mothers, brothers, or other kinds of uncles. And of course, we have another kind of interesting thing when you look at the data. More children in South Africa, particularly if they're colored and black, they live in extended or complex families as well. When you look at the white households and Indian families, they still live with the majority of children live with in nuclear families. So the State of South Africa's Fathers report is trying to track this and ask questions about so what is the cause of this. We did a second survey which found that, and this is perhaps one of the core issues, that more and more women are taking on the roles that are traditionally accorded to fathers, such as not only caring, which women do in the majority, but also financial support.
Mm. So, what is the impact of these levels of fatherlessness? We talk, in my introduction, I was talking about emotional struggles, financial hardship. You mentioned the role, women having to step up and basically play the role of both parents, as well as the societal consequences. What are those that you are observing?
The consequences are far-reaching, and you have mentioned one of them as far as an individual child is concerned. So if you don't have a present, meaning a positive, engaged father in the household, here are some of the issues we can track from early childhood stages right up until teenagehood. That the child does not benefit cognitively. It means when you have a father present in the house, there is a positive cognitive, emotional, cognitive, but also social skills. And the social skills are great. Something that you take for granted, like a child playing with the father. What the child learns in that moment are a number of things, social skills, but also emotional regulation. So if the father is not present, is not there, the child loses out on learning how to emotionally regulate. But also in teenage years, then you can see the consequences clearly, that girls who do not live in the same household as a positive father, a father who's caring, are likely to have early pregnancy, drop out of school, have not so great relationships in their lives. So it has far-reaching consequences. Same with boys. If they don't have a present father, they don't have anybody to identify with, meaning a role model, as we call it. They don't have somebody to model about what kind of man they will be when they get later in life.
I'm almost out of time, Prof, but I really would want you to weigh in on, I imagine that there's a point at which in the report you start suggesting possible ways out, pathways towards solutions. What do those look like?
There are really low-hanging ones. One of them, of course, is ECD centers. These are really, really important. So you are intervening 18 years before the child gets to a man or a woman gets to adulthood. If you intervene early, if you build this, because you are helping also the people who do care by giving them support, but the child going to early childhood education. Another is intervene with evidence-based programs. We have a whole chapter about what kinds of programs are those, and it'll be great for people to read that.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights. That's Professor Kopano Radile, who is a professor at Stellenbosch University, but also one of the editors of the latest State of South African Fathers 2024. That report came out last week. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30760. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, defense update on repatriation process for soldiers killed in the DRC, and ACDP supports government's intention to engage Trump administration. Good morning. The SANDF says the repatriation ceremony and memorial service for fallen soldiers in the DRC will only be held at 6 o'clock this evening, after earlier scheduling the program to begin at 9 o'clock in the morning. The 9-hour delay is purportedly to accommodate President Cyril Ramaphosa's reply to the SONA debate to a joint sitting of the National Assembly in Cape Town. According to the SANDF, he will then fly to Pretoria to join the bereaved families at the Swartkop Air Force Base. Showan Price-Peace reports.
President Ramaphosa is only due to address the National Assembly at 2 p.m. on Thursday and will thereafter immediately depart for Tshwane, where as Commander-in-Chief he will now lead the somber handover of the mortal remains of the 14 fallen soldiers killed in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The chief of the South African National Defence Force and other dignitaries will join the families and the president in honour of the sacrifice made by these soldiers, who were part of both the UN peacekeeping mission MONUSCO and SADC SAMI DRC, towards what the SANDF describes as the country's obligations to collective security on the continent. SABC News will broadcast the memorial live on various platforms.
4 men accused of torching 51 Patco buses at depots in Mpumalanga's Nkangala district a fortnight ago are expected to appear in court today. Mduduzi Masango and Stephen Mtombeni, arrested on Tuesday, will join Isaac Mabena and Lutando Skosana, arrested last month. The four face charges of malicious damage to property. Pumzile Mlangeni reports.
The two recently arrested suspects appeared in court yesterday, but their matter was postponed to today when they will join their co-accused. During the attack, the suspects, wearing balaclavas and black clothing, reportedly held employees at gunpoint. Several workers were assaulted, with one security guard sustaining a gunshot wound and others suffering injuries from beatings. Authorities believe the latest arrest could help uncover the motive behind the coordinated attack.
The Northern Cape High Court has found 27-year-old Itumeleng Machabe guilty of the murder of an 11-year-old minor who was kidnapped and raped in Kimberley in 2022. Relebogile Sikhame was killed and a body was dumped by Machabe behind the provincial legislature. The convict has been in custody since his arrest in 2022. Judge Cecile Williams will hand down his sentence next Tuesday. Sikhame's father says he hopes Machabe will be sentenced to many years behind bars.
I'm praying to God for a strong judgment so that my family can be happy. The mother of my child is very sick, so I want her to try and be strong. I'm also thankful for all the organizations that have been supporting us.
The Northern Cape Department of Education has appealed to parents whose children were barred from attending classes since Monday by the Valharts SGB Forum to ensure they return to class today. The forum closed 15 schools around Warrington and Pampierstad, demanding a speedy resolution to issues of overcrowding and shortage of resources. The department interdicted the forum on Tuesday and says it will implement a catch-up plan for the learners. Jeffrey van der Merwe is the department spokesperson.
All parents are called upon to ensure that the learners attend school promptly. This will allow schools to recover the learning and teaching losses caused by the unlawful closure of schools. The department, along with the South African Police Services, will continue to monitor the situation closely.
And finally, the ACDP leader in Parliament, Reverend Kenneth Meshwe, says his party supports the South African government's intention to send a delegation to engage with the Trump administration. This follows the signing of an executive order by President Donald Trump, which might complicate trade relations with South Africa. The move also allows refugee status to the Afrikaner community who reside in South Africa, following Trump's questioning of South Africa's Expropriation Act. Meshwe says any delay to engage with the U.S. government would have ripple effects on South Africa's economy.
The ACDP supports government's plan to send a delegation to the U.S. to meet with the new U.S. administration in an effort to iron out their differences and improve relations. We need AGOA and duty-free access into that market for AGOA goods to help stimulate our economic growth. I want to appeal to members of this House to show maturity in bilaterals with the U.S. and others and to overcome the temptation of playing a tit-for-tat with them, because that would not bring us any economic benefit.
Recapping the top story, the SANDF says the repatriation ceremony and memorial service for fallen soldiers in the DRC will only be held at 6 o'clock this evening, after earlier scheduling the program to begin at 9 o'clock in the morning. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
February could be the month to celebrate love and savings on your car insurance premium. Get a quote, and if Outsurance can't beat your car insurance premium, ask them for 500 Rand cash. And make that 1,500 Rand cash if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get monthly savings on your car insurance or cash in your pocket. Either way, you win. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
coming out of Joburg's West Rand area, using on Deckers Road, just by Gordon Road. A trucker crashing earlier this morning, just causing delays, dropping down to a single lane on Deckers through Florida Park, being held up because of that. The main road from Lone Hill through a couple of faulty traffic lights in the side of four ways down to Bryanston, down to Bryanston Drive. Very heavy backlogs there. Looks like something's happened on the N1 South before Buccleuch. All of a sudden, traffic pushing back towards Allendale Road. Northern parts of KZN, the N2 closed at Pongola due to protesting. We can confirm that it is protest related, and long backlogs of truck traffic in that Pongola area, just west of town. So it's the Pongola Pit Retief section, if you like. Avoid travel through there. Cape Town fairly heavy on the M1. Traffic queuing from Durban Road all the way through towards the about Marine Drive exit this morning, and plenty of traffic on the N7 South with a queue through Goodwood towards Fort Trekker Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you in your SFM sports headlines. It's cricket action as Pakistan powered to a 6-wicket win over the Proteas in their Tri-Series match. And in soccer, SuperSport United have become the first team to advance into the quarterfinals of the Nedbank Cup. All these stories and more at around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
9 minutes after 7 on this Thursday, the 13th of February 2025. Good morning and welcome to it. This is the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's good to be in your company. Let me give you a sense of where we're going over this next hour. Well, we'll tell you about this really important case. It's called the Duffelberg site case. It was heard earlier on this week at the Constitutional Court. It brings to the fore questions of the way you build social housing matters as much as what housing you provide. So it's not a case about whether or not to provide social housing, but where it is located in relation to apartheid, spatial planning and spatial apartheid. So we'll talk to the head of the law center at Ndifuna Ugwazi, that's Disha Govender. Ndifuna Ugwazi, of course, is one of the organizations that have taken that case all the way to the Constitutional Court. That conversation coming up in the next few minutes. Then we'll tell you about the impact of geopolitical shifts and uncertainty wrought on partly by the emergence of Donald Trump as the U.S. president, but also in terms of the policies that he's been implementing, the tariffs and the likes, the impact thereof on such phenomena as investor confidence and equities and the rand, and how that is affected. So how the economy and the markets are affected by all of that. Temoso Musi, an investment analyst at 36ONE Asset Management and also part of the PPS Managed Fund investment team, will come through and give us a sense of where the chips are landing as far as the economy and the markets are concerned in this age of uncertainty. And lastly, let me tell you about this. You remember a few weeks ago, we had the Tshwane Mayor, Nasipi Moya, going through to Hammanskraal and saying that after years of water there being unsafe to drink, it's finally been fixed and it's safe to drink. Well, the community in Hammanskraal say that only a few days later, after the water was declared drinkable, locals are reporting that the water quickly returned to its contaminated state. We'll speak at about 10 to 8 to Tsepo Mahlangu, who is part of the Lotus Atteridgeville Soulsville Civic Association. But in all of these conversations, we welcome your calls. Please give us a call on 086 000 2032. Your WhatsApp voice notes, I'll take those on 061 410 4107. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The second hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
There's a song that goes, "Money can't buy me love." And that's true. But then they told us all you need is love, which anybody with a mortgage will tell you most certainly is not true. Love won't pay your parking tickets or your student loan. It's also needy. It requires effort, availability, constant care. But more importantly, love requires time. And while money can't buy you love, it can certainly free up some of your time. Time to spend on the things you love, with the people you love. And if you're looking, maybe even time to find the one you love. That's why, after 50 years of investing, we've learned that time is the greatest gift of all. And the good news is, if you invest early, time gives you money. And then money gives you more time to do the things you love. And don't you love that about investing? Ellen Gray, long-term investing. Ellen Gray is an authorized FSP.
Oh, oui, oui, Jessica, I Citroën you. You are my chérie de go. I am your wild track ranger.
What are you doing?
I'm just looking on WeBuyCars' website for what I'm getting you for Valentine's Day.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, they have a nationwide spin and win promotion where you can score a guaranteed prize of up to 10,000 Rand when you purchase a car.
Ooh, now that's romantic.
There's also hundreds of discounted auction vehicles available.
So what are we waiting for?
See you this Valentine's Day weekend at WeBuyCars, the easiest way to buy and sell a car by far.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
13 minutes after 7. The case between Reclaim the City in Ndifuna Ugwazi and the Western Cape government over the Tafelberg site in Sea Point was finally heard in the Constitutional Court on Tuesday. The matter stems from the provincial government's decision to sell the property to a private entity in 2015 rather than use it for affordable housing in the inner city. In 2020, the Western Cape Division of the High Court set aside the sale of the property and ordered the city of Cape Town to address the legacy of apartheid spatial planning in the city. Let's speak now to Disha Govender, who is the head of the law center at Ndifuna Ugwazi. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. Just give me a sense of the significance of this case. My understanding is that it's not about whether or not to provide social housing, but it's about the way of where that social housing is located. Am I correct in understanding it that way?
Morning to Thulasizwe and morning to your listeners. I think that's one element of it, because when we are talking about redressing spatial apartheid, the where is what matters because it's a spatial issue. And it's about not just only social housing, but generally affordable housing, because as we are all too familiar with our history of land dispossession and displacement, what redressing spatial apartheid means and requires us to do is to ensure that people, specifically Black working class people, are able to live in dignified homes in spaces which they were forced out of and remain structurally excluded from.
And I imagine then that in the Constitutional Court case, firstly, let me just start with the historical coincidence. It was heard on the same day, date at least, on which the the relocations were confirmed all those years ago. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's symbolism is just so poetic. It's on the 11th of February, that was the date in which District 6 was declared a white-only area. During this time, all those many years ago, we started seeing the violent forced removals under the Group Areas Act from District 6 to Soweto to Ketamana. And so to have a matter like this, which really is about redressing those injustices being heard, it definitely, is symbolic.
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't lost to me at all when I watched the case play itself out. Tell me what it is you are asking the Constitutional Court to do. You were successful in the High Court. The Supreme Court of Appeal didn't agree. Among the arguments, and as I said, among the arguments that were successful in the SCA was by the provincial government in the city of Cape Town that you can't, as housing activists, dictate where that housing should be located. What are you asking the Constitutional Court to do?
So obviously we are arguing that the SCA mischaracterized the case and essentially asked itself the wrong question. The question isn't about whether or not you have a right to social housing in a specific location that's somehow articulated somewhere in some act, but it's rather about assessing whether the measures that the province and the city have adopted to redress spatial apartheid, whether those measures are reasonable or not. And so we are asking the court to declare that the province and the city have actually failed in their obligations to redress spatial apartheid, and to actually grant an order which would see them have to come up with a coordinated, comprehensive plan which articulates what they're going to be doing to redress spatial apartheid.
And all this talk about a pipeline of social housing, I remember that came up for a bit, in the course of arguments. That is not satisfactory for the city and the Western Cape government to say we have a pipeline and we've since added to that pipeline further opportunities for social housing. That doesn't cut it for you, does it?
Well, essentially, yes, that's what we have argued. We've argued that, and let me just clarify, social housing is one mechanism which can be used to redress spatial apartheid because it allows the government to access specific kinds of subsidies. But it's not the only way in which affordable housing can be made real in central Cape Town. And that's really important to note. And in terms of the social housing pipeline, these aren't projects that have actually broken ground. And this is 30 years post-democracy. How can it be that 30 years post-democracy, you only have social housing projects in central Cape Town that are in the pipeline, where it brings into question the commitment to see a change in our society structure. I mean, obviously, we went into further other details as to, questioning, the addition of some of these projects and the timing of the addition of these projects to the pipeline, obviously being post the launch of the litigation. And at the end of the day, what we do want to see is social housing being developed in central Cape Town. So we have no problem with projects on the pipeline, but we do believe that it's disingenuous to rely on pipeline projects that haven't actually been realized 30 years post-democracy.
As a parting shot then, Disha, tie it all together for me, the significance of this case beyond the city of Cape Town and the Western Cape, happening as it does within the context of debates around the Expropriation Act, which, conceptually could come into play in instances, for instance, in other cities where there's urban decay and there are buildings that perhaps have been abandoned even by the owner and could potentially be targets for that expropriation. How does that all play together in relation to addressing the availability of low cost and social housing in urban areas?
So this case obviously also requires the court to look at, interpret, clarify specific legislation which is aimed at guiding government generally on how they use, manage, and dispose of land. And so that obviously is critical and would apply to land across the country because it's about state land across the country. So it's about that public land and how do you use it to achieve the objectives of the state, which include land reform. And while this case really does look at the use and disposal of public land, what it highlights and has highlighted and brought to the fore is that land is critical. I think we all know this already, but available land is critical in order for government to achieve the objective of land reform. And so the way this links with, for instance, expropriation, especially in the urban context where there's such scarcity in land available for affordable housing development, does bring into question, well, what other mechanisms can the state use? For instance, when there is abandoned land, is it not permissible for them to actually then take that land in order to be able to deliver to the people of this country?
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. We'll await the judgment. It does seem to me that this will be one of those landmark judgments. That's Disha Govender, who is the head of the Law Center at Ndifuna Ugwazi.
Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Mpeni Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers. This is the Nedbank Cup Ross 16. Mamelodi Sundowns versus Mpeni Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCsport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
52-year-old Sipho loves Outsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. For his 2007 Hyundai Tucson, he only pays 314 Rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash, so you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Top this up with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
23 minutes after 7. As geopolitics shifts into uncertainty, global markets are struggling to make sense of it all. The uncertainty largely driven by new trade policies under the U.S. President Donald Trump has had a noticeable impact on investor confidence. According to experts, this uncertainty is affecting South African equities and the rand, creating both challenges and opportunities for investors. Let's speak now to Temuso Musi, who is an investment analyst at 361 Asset Management and part of the PPS Managed Fund Investment Team. Good morning to you, Temuso, and thank you for your time. So when we say that the uncertainty is affecting South African equities and the rand, what do we mean exactly?
Good morning to Thulasizwe and good morning to your listeners. So, with the geopolitics situation and the tariffs, comes a lot of uncertainty. And in that sort of environment, we have what is called a risk-off environment, and this sort of involves investors having a lower risk appetite for a wide range of riskier assets. South Africa, as a developing economy, has a bit more risk to sort of the more developed nations that have a large investor base. So, in a sense, as an emerging economy, they are sort of risks that the market prices in. And with uncertainty, people are rather trying to reduce the amount of risk that they do have exposure to. So in a sense, in a nutshell, from top level, that's sort of what we're watching. And as an effect, as you've mentioned, is that, the rand does fluctuate in these sort of times, in these sort of periods. And that's something that we've been watching closely. I mean, at the start of the year, we saw the rand go to high levels, around 19 rands to the dollar. I mean, that's sort of come down now as we continue to assess the situation and try to navigate, So we have seen an improvement from the start of the year. I mean, the start of the year in January was quite tough. Market volatility was quite high. We saw the US 10-year yields be quite elevated. But since then, it seems to have sort of stabilized, but we're still watching the situation and, do realize that, market volatility is likely to going to continue for the foreseeable future as there's a lot of uncertainty around Trump and trade policies.
So you mentioned the rand. What are the other trends that you are observing, particularly that link perhaps to the tensions that are playing themselves out between the United States and South Africa, but also the policies such as tariffs that were announced by Donald Trump? I saw in your piece, Temuso, you were still talking at about 18%. A few days ago, Trump was talking tariffs as high as 25%, and basically across the board, across the world, those countries that have a trade deficit, where the U.S. has a trade deficit, he says is going to hit all of us with tariffs up to 25% or more.
Great. So that's a very good question. I think as a start, it's also quite important to have a better understanding of the tariffs and what's going on, right? So in the article that you're referring to, that 18%, that is sort of the U.S. weighted average import tariffs across all imports. So that's essentially the effective or the weighted average of all tariffs. So at the start, right, in October, you had Trump speaking quite aggressively. He was talking about 60% tariffs on China. That is ridiculous. That's quite high. And with that, if you look at all the imports, that sort of came to a number of 18% tariffs across every product that's imported into the US. So now with the 25% tariff that you're referring to, that more pertains to the steel and aluminium. So it's very isolated to those sectors, still very important and still have some inflationary effects. But yeah, it's just important to understand those sort of numbers that are going to be flying around and try to have a good sense of it, right? So that 18% total tariff across all imports. Now, this is very important to think about because the last time the U.S. ever had tariffs that high was actually in the 1930s, and this was actually during the time of the U.S. Depression, and when I think tariffs then were about 20% across the board on U.S. imports, and that just exacerbated the dire effects of in the U.S. Depression period. And for that reason, I think that it's not in America's best interest to raise tariffs to that level because it's going to. I mean, at that time, we saw global trade plummet 60% in that year. That is obscene, and with that comes a global growth slowing down to almost zero.
Yeah.
So it's very dangerous, and it's also very important to consider these sort of numbers. So it's something that we're watching closely, and also we also understand that tariffs are essentially a very good negotiation tool that Trump has in his pocket, but still there are limits to the extent that one can implement these tariffs in order to protect their own economy, and that's something that we need to consider, going forward and assessing the situation is something that we always tracking day to day.
Lastly then, Temuso, in layman terms, and you're going to have to do a bit of education here for those of us who are lay people. The rand and how it's affected. I've heard the commentary that jokingly says this rand is sentimental and this rand is weak, man. Why does it get affected by all of this? But if you can explain the cascading effect of some of these policy decisions that happen in Washington and elsewhere on the rand, on the cost of living in South Africa, but also on returns on investment for the people that you report to, your investors?
So happy to listen. It's a very good question. When it comes to currency and when it comes to rand, I mean, the rand, is a very volatile currency. And I think that, if in layman terms, if you look at, the sort of the typical South African and how the rand could affect them, it's important to consider, right, that, with these trade policies that are happening in Washington, that can impact the dollar, right? And, if Trump decides to become more aggressive with his trade policy and tariffs, you're likely to see, some inflation come to the party. And with inflation, that certainly, adds some risks of interest rates staying higher for longer. Now, with interest rates staying higher for longer in the U.S., the dollar is a bit more preferred as an asset. And you might start seeing capital flowing to the U.S. And that's, people taking their South African positions and moving it to the U.S. And that in turn causes the rand to be weaker to the U.S.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of how that can affect, day-to-day living in South Africa, is that we should also appreciate that South Africa, in fact, is a big importer of goods.
Yeah.
From textiles to certain groceries to clothing, and actually a very big importer of South Africa is that of oil. And with the rand weakening, oil becomes more expensive because oil is denominated to the dollar, and fuel costs can start to come up, which can have quite significant effects on the South African.
Demoso, thank you for that. I appreciate the challenge of trying to bring it down to layperson level, but you did well. That's Demoso Musi, who is an investment analyst at 361 Asset Management and also part of the PPS Managed Fund investment team. Let's check in now with N. Musa with the latest news headlines.
Good morning. Thanks to Las. In the headlines, there's a fallout in the MK Party's parliamentary caucus between Chief Whip Mzanele Mane and caucus leader Dr. John Hlophe. Some within the party are alleging that Hlophe was set up by being given a poorly crafted SONA debate speech on the 11th hour after he had long prepared his speech, which was ready to be presented. The SNDF says the repatriation ceremony and memorial service for fallen soldiers in the DRC will only be held at 6 o'clock this evening, after earlier scheduling the program to begin at 9 o'clock in the morning. And 6 suspects employed by a city power contractor have been arrested for stealing copper from the observatory substation near Johannesburg. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very heavy Thursday morning, particularly motorists coming out of Pretoria down through to Joburg. There's a couple of issues on the go. There's a breakdown at Samrand and there's a crash down the bottom at Buccleuch. So both of those incidents joining traffic right the way back into Brockfontein interchange. That's on your way to Joburg. On the way to Pretoria, there's a crash before Brockfontein. So from Old Joburg Road, that's quite slow. And just anecdotally, there's a lot of traffic around this morning and you can certainly see the volume. Because of all the traffic light issues around the northwestern parts of Joburg, you can just see how much volume there is in routes like Bayswater, Malabongwe, and that whole four-ways area under lots of pressure. Truck overturning on Deckers Road coming in at Florida Park, so some disruption Joburg bound there as well. Durban-Higginson Highway coming out of Chatsworth, quite slow this morning from Bayview all the way down towards the N2 highway. The M7 from Queensborough down towards the N2. There's a bit of queuing pressure there. And the N2, northern parts of KZN, remains closed through Pongola. Just on the northern side of Pongola, or just west of Pongola, on the Peter Retief Road, closed due to community protest action again. Cape Town, if you're driving into Stellenbosch, all your major approaches are heavily backed up. And the N1 into town, standing from Plattercliff Hill this morning, right through to Marine Drive. There's an issue around Marine Drive, which is having an impact on that inbound flow. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Hey Zai, good morning to you once again. Not such a good morning for us as Proteas supporters. What, with us crashing out of the Tri-Series from at the hands of a clinical Pakistan.
Very clinical. That is the operative word to us. But our coach, Rob Walters, he's calling it a learning experience. But yes, not a great day at the office for Team Proteas. Salman Aga, Mohammad Rizwan, they went on to break a number of records. They powered Pakistan to a 6-wicket win over the Proteas in this Tri-Series match at the National Stadium in Karachi yesterday. Pakistan chased down 352 for 5 that the Proteas earlier had managed to bat first. Now, their incredible 4th-wicket partnership of 260 runs of 229 balls was the highest ever for Pakistan and the second highest in ODI history. The result means that Pakistan qualify for the Tri-Series final against New Zealand at the same ground tomorrow, while the Proteas, they miss out after they lost both their games. Now, with the ICC Champions Trophy just a week away, Proteas coach Rob Walter is looking ahead.
I think we have more information now than we did before, both for Lahore and here for Karachi. So from that point of view, to have a good understanding of conditions is obviously a win, and certainly something that we'll lean on as we move forward. For those in the group that are going to be in the Champions Trophy, obviously it was good prep for them. And then also for our younger guys who've come across and played, and Matthew Bretzke, who we've seen really stand up, obviously stands him in good stead moving forward.
Let's go to soccer action. SuperSport United becoming the first team to advance in the quarterfinals of the 2024-25 Nedbank Cup. They edged Cape Town Spurs 2-1 over 120 minutes at the Lucas Moripa Stadium last night. Elsewhere, James Tarkowski lashed in a 98th minute equaliser. Everton 2-2 was their draw against Liverpool in the last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. In the meantime, a stoppage time penalty by substitute Gustav Nielsen secured Club Brugge a 2-1 home win against Atalanta in the first leg of their Champions League knockout phase playoff. Also, Bayern Munich, they took a 2-1 lead back to Germany for the second leg of the UEFA Champions League playoff following a narrow win away to Celtic. Here's the Munich boss, Vincent Kompany.
Sometimes you have to defend, and it doesn't come. It's not a problem. I think we did it, and obviously you can see the goal on set piece, just like we scored a goal on set piece today. So that always influences a little bit, but I think in general we did enough to deserve the win and to put ourselves in a decent position after the first half of this game.
Let's go to some tennis action where the German Alexander Zverev, he was the top seed that moved into the last 8 of the Argentina Open. He won against Serb Dusan Lajovic 6-4, 6-4 at the Buenos Aires Lawn Tennis Club. That's a wrap of your morning brief sport. There'll be more coming up at the top of the hour. I'm Zaikan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Tell me about Pan-African Resources and their expectations around earnings growth as well as, for the second half of the financial year.
So first things first, some good news for shareholders as the mine considers reinstating interim dividends. And this comes as it's optimistic about its prospects, saying it plans to be de-geared in the next 12 to 18 months. The Mataya gold miner maintained its full-year production guidance of about 215,000 ounces, which is a 16% increase from the previous period. I spoke to the company's CEO, Kobus Lutz, and he said the firm is well positioned for improved production in the second half of the year with record gold prices and the end of the forward agreement. Pan-African is expecting a significant tailwind on the back of those moves. The company also reported progress on its projects, including the commissioning of a new shaft at Evander Mines and the ramp-up of its Mogale tailings treatment project. Pan-African is considering plans to boost production at that project to up to 60,000 ounces per year. The group also expects upbeat production from its Australian unit as the mine becomes operational from June this year. Now, the outlook comes alongside its half-year results, where Pan-African reported a near 43% decline in profit due to a forward sales agreement and lower gold sales. Markets really punishing the counter for those numbers, with the share price shedding over 7% in yesterday's session.
And then in mining and related matters, tell me about lower metal prices. How are they weighing on Northern Platinum?
So those PGM counters still feeling the pain from lower metal prices, lower PGM prices in particular, and Northern not being an exception. They expect profits to more than halve, warning of a fall in earnings of between 44.7 to 54.7% for the 6 months ending December 31st. This is, of course, due to downbeat metal prices, rising mining and energy costs as well. Despite the lower earnings, though, the company reported a solid production performance during the period. Sales revenue decreased by 3.1% to 14.5 billion rand, mainly due to the decline in metal prices. The update also revealed that Northern Platinum reported a 3.7% increase in refined metal production from its own operations, driven by strong performances from all its mines. So operationally, it is doing well, but of course, those low metal prices coming in to bite. The company has 12.3 billion rands in available banking facilities and expects its mining tonnages and grades to improve over the next 2 years as its growth and innovation projects are completed.
Lastly, Dowling, please give us another recap of market activity here at home and elsewhere in the world.
So kicking things off in Asia, those markets really shrugging off the hot U.S. inflation print and the impact it could have on the Fed's monetary policy moving forward. They are trading mostly in the green this hour. The Hong Kong Hang Seng leading the gains. They up close to 2%, followed by the Japanese Nikkei rising 1.4%. Looking at U.S. futures, sitting in positive territory, a stock difference from yesterday's close. And then back at home, local markets staging a recovery in yesterday's trading session, and this despite downbeat economic data. The JSE all share edged 0.4% higher. In currency markets, not much action playing out there, with the rand really remaining steady. It's sitting at 18.46 to the dollar this hour.
That's Ntauleng Lechela there. She'll be back one more time to give you a sense of how the markets will be shaping up for this Thursday, and that update will be coming up just after 8:30 here on The Morning Brief.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OutSurance.
Switching to OutSurance has definitely saved me money. 2,107 rands per month. I would recommend OutSurance to all business owners because they will definitely save money. With OutSurance, you always get something out.
For your business insurance, contact OutSurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
All right, let's talk TV licenses. Did you know that paying your TV license isn't just about legalities? It helps fund local productions and creates jobs in the entertainment industry. That means more epic dramas, exciting sports, and news that keeps us informed. So, when was the last time you checked yours? Visit tvlic.co.za and make sure you are up to date. After all, it's your screen, your story. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. Good morning to you, Raz. So I know you and I share this passion for African solutions to African problems, even in the form of international law instruments. And one of those kicked into gear yesterday. Tell me about the DRC versus Rwanda at the African Court on Human and People's Rights.
Fresh morning to the Jumbo Africa to the listeners. In Tulas, yesterday we saw the what we call a first inter court had to a state between for the first time we see member state taking another member state to the court. Yes, see elections evidence of rape.
Simple. My apologies. The network is letting us down once again. I don't know if you can move around a little bit. We'll just take a bit of a break and give you maybe a minute or so to see if you can find better reception. So we'll let Sipho just move around where he is so that we see if the quality of the line can improve. It's certainly not working out that well for us. You're not getting the full benefit of Sipho's update there.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Can you tell us more about the circumstances that led to the inmate escaping?
It is still a scene which is active in terms of the investigations that we are conducting. But what I can share with you and the listeners is that this inmate was part of a SPEN, in simple English, a work team that was allocated to work within the grounds of the facility. So, and he was also allocated to status of being a monitor. So for an inmate to get to that particular level, it means that someone who has worked hard and managed to be given some degree of responsibility.
Singabako Numano is the Department of Correctional Services spokesperson.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
Africa Update on SAFM.
All right, let's give it one more try. Sipho Mantula, tell me about the DRC versus Rwanda case before the African Court on Human and People's Rights.
Remember, this case was lost in 2023 by DRC against Rwanda, saying that there are alleged human rights violations caused by Rwanda that includes human trafficking, torture, and as well as supporting the M23 rebels. DRC, it is asking for the court to mandate Rwanda to remove its forces, stop supporting M23, as well as violating their human rights, provide reparations, as well as compensation and cover all costs. This case is going on even today in Arusha, Tanzania.
And then in Ethiopia, we are headed up for the African Union Summit. It's the 38th edition.
Tulas, this is very exciting, looking at 5 key issues that will come out. They will have to look at the theme, which is always about advancing justice for this continent. Payment of reparations have come on the top of the agenda, Tulas. The issues of Agenda 2063, health and well-being in this continent, Tulas, very important. Youth and innovation, peace, security, considering the DRC and Sudan. These are the issues that they will have to deal with. Climate change also, Tulas. And finally, we know, Tulas, we know that Musa Faki has vacated the seat. It's between Raila Odinga, the Foreign Affairs Minister of Djibouti, as well as of Madagascar. So it's also election of the new leadership in Addis Ababa.
And in Sudan, you mentioned Sudan there in passing. That country, the government is not wasting any time, despite the conflict of the last few months. It's not wasting any time playing its role in the international community. Tell me about the visit by that country's foreign minister to Russia.
Remember Ali Yusuf Ahmed, when he was meeting Sergei Lavrov, Tulas, was about the resolution that was passed by the Security Council that wanted to have an international UN force to intervene in Sudan. Russia blocked that passing of the resolution. Hence, this visit was very important for the Foreign Affairs Minister of North Sudan, Al-Sharif, to visit Russia, but also to pledge for more support as they are still trying to rework on this new government of national unity in Sudan. But there are still challenges, but this visit was a courtesy to thank Russia for its role in the UN Security Council.
And we've been hearing in West Africa, we've been hearing from the president of Sierra Leone, but talking more about the military in neighboring Liberia. What's that about?
There was an Armed Forces Day by the Tulas yesterday in Liberia. So Julius Madabio was an invited guest. Now, he raised an important issue when he said the military has to keep away from politics, Tulas, and let your loyalty be to the people, constitution, democratic institutions, and that's how he was trying to show the history that military is aligning to democracy when the nation prosper. But he's raising the issue that once the military is involved, and I think it's based on the Sahel incident, of military coups, but also in Julius Madabio survived a military coup, Tulas, but he knows that, hence he was talking to the military generals of Liberia yesterday as they were commemorating the Armed Forces Day and pledging them that they have to stay away from politics.
Yeah, it's interesting that he was invited to speak in that capacity, given the history. It tells you how far we've moved from that history, from the days of Charles Taylor. Lastly, Sipho, talk to me about your historical archive, 13 February 2005. What happened?
Tulas, 20 years ago when one of our South African musical group, Ladysmith Black, Mambazo Amnyama Tulas, they won the second Grammy Award for their global recognition, and that came from their album Wanyukela, that was in 2005. We know they've got many awards with Paul Simon. Their first album, 1973, Amabuto. This band was from the 1960s. So when you have to think about it, it's a long-standing heritage of our music in this country, led by Ntate Joseph Shabalala. Even this week, when we did not connect, we are going to make an honor anniversary of his passing in 2025 years ago, the passing of Joseph Begisizwe Shabalala. Asante sana, Tulas, as you said in the conversation, SFM observing the Black History Month.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mantula there with your Africa update.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A heads up, if you drive between Heidelberg and Brakpan, you can factor in some very heavy queue time on the R23 route. That is just south of the N17, just south of Carnival City. Motorists queuing both directions on that route, very unusual. The Mike 1 this morning from Boysons through to about Oxford Road, and then call a drive up towards Grayston Drive is fairly heavy. Rivonia Road into Morningside, having left Rivonia. On your way to Santon, very busy, and of course a lot of delays between Kaya Sand and Randburg, and between Honeydew and Cresta due to multiple traffic lights that are out. The run through Midrand is fairly slow this morning. An earlier crash at Buccleuch is being cleared, but that's what basically backed everything up. There's also a stationary vehicle in the mix at Samrand, so from Brockfontein all the way down to Buccleuch, it's fairly heavy. Going towards Pretoria, a crash at Brockfontein, so that's a heavy backlog from Samrand on the N1 going north. Let's get an update from Pongola. The road was closed earlier this morning and then opened and then closed again because news of more community protesting just west of Pongola. The road is still closed, so if you need to go Pongola Pit Retief, probably a good idea just to sit that one out for a little bit longer until the scene is clear and the situation resolved for today at least. Don't forget the closure at Cliffdale, 2:30 until 3 p.m. It's a full closure at the N3 for blasting. Cliffdale to Hammanskraal, or Key Ridge to Hammanskraal, 2:33 p.m. is the time to be avoiding travel between Durban and Pietermaritzburg. And Cape Town, the M1 inbound, the reason for the big delay from Belleville through to Woodstock is a crash just past Marine Drive, just before Marine Drive, so just after the Cooper interchange. And talking of Marine Drive, it's heavy this morning. Sunningdale to Racecourse Road, then Milnerton to Pardon Island, then Pardon Island down towards the N1. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's talk. Let me take one or two of your calls now. Let me start with Kirk in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Kirk. You want to talk to me about the MK Party. What about them?
Good morning to Thulasizwe. Yes, the MK Party is about to implode. Several callers at the advent of the party, or the starting of the party, predicted that it was only a matter of time with their recruiting policy that there was going to be drama within the party. And of course, they seem to run that party quite differently to other more established parties. It seems more an ad hoc, blow by blow, daily running situation. So I'm not surprised at all, and I think we're going to watch this space quite carefully to see how it unravels.
You don't think this is part of the growing pains? You think there's something fundamentally going wrong within the party? You don't think that all of these spats that we are seeing, resignations and replacements of people, etc., contention for positions in Mpumalanga, that's part of the growing pains?
I agree. It's part of the growing pains of any new party. However, the core of the party, with the de facto leader, Jacob Zuma, and his family, and his alleged cronies from his previous life within the ANC, and discarded other members. I think that's the core of the problem. Right. And I don't know if they will be able to overcome those hurdles.
Kirk, thank you for that. That's Kirk in Cape Town. Let me take a call from Lerotodi in Rustenburg. Good morning to you. You want to talk to me about Nicolas Sarkozy and his troubles?
Yeah, I want to talk to you about him. Tilas, you are saying about being a politician, being above the law, being untouchable. That thing, firstly, is only happening in Africa. Let me tell you. Let me go to Pakistan. Imran Khan. He's a former Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, yeah.
That's only 3 years back or 4 years back. He has been removed by motion of no confidence. And then he arrested and been prosecuted and been jailed in Pakistan, Imran Khan. But in South Africa here, we do unrest if a politician can be arrested. So you see, our thinking is different to like other people. You see, like you talk about South Korea, the president is being impeached there. But they allowed the law to take its course. But in Africa, I only remember Charles Taylor. It did not happen that time when he was arrested.
Yes.
You remember Charles Taylor?
Yes, I remember, yes. At the International Court, yeah.
Yes. Now, in Africa, the politician, they can be above even the constitution. Like now, the Zimbabwean constitution says you can only stay 10 years in power. But Robert Mugabe stayed there for a while, but not complaining. The ZANU-PF, they only complain now about Mnangagwa when he wants a third term.
Yeah.
You see?
All
but
right.
I think the thinking must be changed, Tilas.
Thank you, Lerotodi. Thank you for bringing that international element and bringing it home and making it real for us to grapple with. What is it that we are doing wrong? In as far as ensuring that all people are equal before the law, no matter how powerful they are or have been in terms of the office that they held. Kwena in Rustenburg as well. Good morning to you. You want to talk to me about the State of the Nation address?
It's Mukwena, not Kwena.
Mukwena, yes. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. The president is saying that he will not be bullied. Was he not the one who was saying that he does not care about Donald Trump in 2018? What now has changed?
Who's this now? The president?
The president, yes.
Yes.
He said that Donald Trump will keep his American and he will keep his South African. He does not care about Donald Trump. What has now changed?
I hear what you're saying. But now, Mukwena, is it not part of the problem that now Donald Trump is focusing almost like squarely on South Africa? Not squarely, but, among other things, his key focus is now directly on South Africa, requiring a response from our president.
We are the one who started him. The president provoked Donald Trump without saying anything. He spoke about this thing of the land reforms and all that, but it was not right. Like, the president decided to provoke him. And when you provoke a person like Donald Trump who doesn't care, he will definitely act. And he has acted against us, and we should learn to live with that. And one more thing, Thulasizwe, is that it's a high time as Africans we learn to embrace one another. We are one person. Yeah. Irrespective of you are from Ghana, you are from Zimbabwe, you are from Djibouti, or wherever you come from. Let's learn to embrace and love one another.
I can't agree with you more.
African.
On that score, I can't agree with you more, Mukwena. Thank you for that. That's Mukwena in Rustenburg there. One love, we are all Africans. Let me take one or two of your voice notes now. Let's start with this one. Earlier on, we were talking about the phenomenon of fatherlessness in South Africa. Let's hear what this one or two of these listeners have had to say about that.
Good morning, Dulas. I thought males in general and fathers in particular were not needed because women were said to be independent, not in need of anybody. Now I'm confused. Grand, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to be part of their lives, or are we not needed in their lives? What's going on now? I thought we were not needed. We were trash the last time I heard.
Sure, I hear what you're saying. But you see, here's part of the problem. You're saying women, and you're talking women and independence. Fatherhood and being present in the life of a child is essentially about the child, not about the mother. It is about the child. Over and above everything else, it is about the child. So you're taking issue with those issues of hashtag men are trash, I don't need a man, etc. All of that, that's one thing. But I think we should be separating the issues there as far as the role of a father in the life of a child is concerned.
Good morning, guys. Good morning to SAFM and the listeners. Yeah, I understand, it's heavy not being there for your son. My dad wasn't there for me. From the time I was like 3, 4. My mom grew me up. I had a stepdad that took after me, so it was hectic growing up, having a mother to be as a father and mom together, but it's hard these days and these years, like being a father. I have a son and I miss him like so much, but I wish I could be there for him, and it's tough now in our country.
Yeah, no, it is. Thank you for sharing that story. And it's a story that many will relate with, the absence of their own father and how it impacts the role that they play when they become fathers, the role modeling that wasn't there. But also you have a great element of many people who are saying, I want to be different. My father wasn't there, and hence from those lessons I've learned, and I will ensure that I will be present in the lives of my own children. All right, let's check in with N. Musa with the latest news now.
In our top stories, and alleged fallout within the MK Party's parliamentary caucus and remains of fallen soldiers to be handed over to families. Good morning. There is a fallout in the MK Party's parliamentary caucus between Chief Whip Mzwaneli Mane and caucus leader Dr. John Hlophe. Some within the party are alleging Hlophe was set up by being given a poorly written SONA debate speech on the 11th hour, after he had long prepared his speech, which was ready to present. Those sympathetic to the former judge allege this was done deliberately to embarrass him. Samkelo Maseko reports.
Those sympathetic to Hlophe allege that this was done deliberately in order to embarrass him. Party insiders claim that when the speech was given to Hlophe, they lied to him and said it's President Jacob Zuma who instructed that he must be given a speech. A source within the party claimed that Mane was confronted by the MKP parliamentary caucus about what they term a poor speech. He justified himself in a caucus meeting by saying it's Secretary General Floyd Shivambu who wrote the speech and instructed Mane to pass it to Judge John Hlophe.
Public Works Minister Dean McPherson says his department is taking zero tolerance on corruption. He says the DA has contributed a lot to the GNU in 7 months. He added that they've started a skills audit to ensure their skills to execute government projects. He warned that the construction mafia's days are numbered. McPherson says disused and abandoned government buildings will be repurposed for public use and rental to generate revenue for the state.
We have released 31 properties for redevelopment at a value of 1.4 billion rand. Mr. President, this is going to generate up to 10 billion rand in private sector investment, create 165,000 jobs, and generate close to 200 million rand in rental income for the South African government. This is what the DA is delivering in the GNU.
The South African National Defence Force, the SANDF, says it has met with families of the 14 soldiers who lost their lives in the Democratic Republic of Congo conflict to inform them of the logistics of handing over their remains this evening. The SANDF says arrangements have been put in place for families to receive the bodies of their loved ones today. A memorial service and handover ceremony will be held at 6 o'clock this evening, where President Cyril Ramaphosa will also attend. Prince Shabalala is from the SANDF Directorate for Corporate Communication.
So the fallen heroes will arrive today, and then once they've arrived, we will actually start with the handing over of the mortal remains to hand them over to the families today at 6 p.m. at Air Force Base, Swarkop. The National Defence Force has a system where all families are informed about the arrangements, and we had a briefing with the family last night where we will inform them about all the processes that will take place.
Alleged underworld figure Nafis Modak says police asked him to split nightclub security services with his rival Mark Liffman. Modak has been testifying in the Western Cape High Court. Modak and 14 others face over 100 charges, including murder, attempted murder and contravening the Prevention of Organised Crime Act. Modak is expected to continue giving evidence in chief when the trial resumes in the Western Cape High Court today.
General Vieri asked me what is my intention with the clubs, my lord. I said to him to make all the clubs in Cape Town drug-free, my lord. And I explained to him that TSG is busy with the security, my lord. General Vieri then commented, my lord, to say, I need to split Cape Town's nightclubs with Mark Liffman, my lord.
6 suspects employed by a City Power contractor have been arrested for allegedly stealing copper from the observatory substation near Johannesburg. City Power spokesperson Isaac Mangena says the men were apprehended while busy stealing the cables. He says 4 of the suspects were discovered in a tunnel while cutting burnt and intact copper, while the other 2 were found in possession of copper in a nearby vehicle.
The total weight of the confiscated copper cables amounted to about 129 kg, which has been handed over to our risk and security department at City Power. An additional 11 kg of copper cable was also found under the bus, was also booked at City Power without a suspect, and were also transported to our salvage yard. As previously stated, the net is really closing down on those who are involved in the scourge of theft and vandalism, particularly those who are employed or are contracted to City Power.
Recapping the top story, there's a fallout in the MK Party's parliamentary caucus between the chief Whip Mzwanele and caucus leader Dr. John Hlophe. Some within the party are alleging Hlophe was set up by being given a poorly written SONA debate speech on the 11th hour, after he had long prepared his speech, which was ready to be presented. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, the crash and the breakdown coming through mid-Rand on your way to Joburg are being clear. The breakdown was at Samrand, the crash at Beclu. It's all out of the way, but it has left a heavy backlog from Brockfontein down to about New Road. If you're going to Pretoria, there is a big backlog, a crash at Brockfontein interchange. Queues back to Samrand on the N1 North. The collision driving into Pretoria on the N4 before you get to the N1 highway. So some queuing pressure again this morning as you come through from Watermeer Street. Crash on the Molpani Highway at the hairpin bend, causing a delay if you're town bound. The N2 at Pongola remains closed to traffic. Local community closing that road again just on the northern side of Pongola. There was a truck that crashed into a couple of houses yesterday. I can't help but think it's related to that. The M7 from Queensborough, bluff-bound towards the N2 is heavy. And Cape Town, very slow on the N1 this morning. Traffic queuing from Plattercliff Hill down to Marine Drive. That's a crash scene just after the Kuberg interchange. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's soccer. Steve Barker is praising Polokwane City ahead of the Nedbank Cup tie tonight. And South Africa's under-23 wheelchair basketball team, they claim gold in the African Championship. We'll bring details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
8 minutes after 8, we are into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. I'm Thulasizwe Simelane. It's good to be in your company. We've started quite a number of conversations over the last 2 hours, and key among them, and I see a lot of you weighing in on that conversation, and that's quite encouraging to see, is the conversation around fatherlessness in South Africa. This in the wake of the latest State of South African Fathers report, that is a 2024 report, and it came out last week, just accounting for some of the factors at play in the situation that we face, where a big number of South African children are growing up without fathers in their lives. I mean, the Human Sciences Research Council a few years ago told us over 60% of children don't live with their biological fathers. And then you had about 20% being said to have contact with their biological fathers about, on average, twice a week. And I was saying earlier on that this is one of those areas of life where we can't demand action by way of policy or decree by the government or something like that. It is a situation where you and I need to counsel one another to grapple with it together and weigh in on solutions, the root causes of fatherlessness, as well as some of the solutions. And I've been seeing some of your inputs coming in. Please keep them coming. The number to dial 086 000 2032 and your WhatsApp voice notes on 061 410 4107. In this hour, we will bring you that conversation. We had to move it up slightly, that conversation about the water situation in Hammanskraal. You saw a few weeks ago the Tshwane Mayor Nasipi Moya declaring the water in Hammanskraal to be drinkable. Well, locals are now reporting that as soon as the mayor left, they were back to a situation where the water was back in its contaminated state, as well as you hearing from the DA, for example, saying that actually in some areas that were meant to be covered by phase 1 of the Hammanskraal water project, there's actually no water flowing out of taps at all. So we'll take that conversation with Tsepo Mahlangu in this hour. That and a whole lot more coming up. This is SAFM. We are leading the conversations that move us. The third hour of the Thursday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
Whether you're having a early, snoozy, tantrumy, chill, frustrating, or jokey. Morning. Mornings love McDonald's, so choose happy and enjoy a Burry Burger Double and a short filter coffee for only R39.90 from 6 to 10:30 a.m. at McDonald's.
The Buccaneers want to demonstrate that they are the reigning champions and nothing will stop them from marching on to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Bakaga have a different game plan to return to Hammanskraal with happy faces. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Orlando Pirates FC tackles Baroka FC. This Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
12 minutes after 8 on this Thursday, the community of Hammanskraal recently faced renewed promises of clean water following the completion of Phase 1 of the Machalis Klipdrift water treatment plant project. The area has grappled with a 2-decade-long water contamination crisis. However, just days after the Tshwane Mayor Nasipi Moya declared that the water was drinkable, locals are reporting that the water quickly returned to its contaminated state. I'm joined now by Tsepo Mahlangu, who is part of the Lotus Atteridgeville Soulsville Civic Association. Good morning to you, Tsepo, and thank you for your time. So a few weeks ago, the Mayor Nasipi Moya, doing what communications experts will tell you the world over is a confidence booster. If you're saying the water is clean to drink, you as the official declaring that should take a sip of it from a glass in full view of the cameras. She did that, but are you saying that if she were to do that today, she would have difficulties?
Most definitely. Good morning and good morning to the listeners at home. Thulasizwe, she did take a sip of that water. We saw it on national television. But what surprised us is days after, the water turned into the very same condition it were before. So if you were to tell her to go and drink that water, I was on an interview on TV just 3 days ago. I pleaded with her and Minister Pim Majodina to go the following day, not to postpone, because if you shift the goalpost, something might happen. We know the politicians. They might do something to make us believe that this is not what is happening. This is actually what is happening. If she were to go today, she won't drink that water.
When you say she won't drink that water and you talk about the quality, how does it manifest? Is it in the odor? Is it in the color? Or have we seen people actually getting sick from drinking the water that is flowing out of taps as part of the Phase 1 of the project?
My biggest problem is that in South Africa, we have adopted a reactionary approach on issues. People are waiting for somebody to get sick so that they can start raising this issue, especially these politicians. That water is brownish. Some have got something like worms in it, and they're smelling. So the problem is, with me, people go to media to make some statements. The people who are on the ground experiencing these things are not heard enough, So we are planning to make this issue a reality so that we want to resolve this issue. It's a human rights issue. It's no longer about politicking, Thulasizwe. My plea now, where I'm sitting, is that any political party must not, I'm not accusing the mayor, any political party must not claim easy victory on this issue. This is not about competition. A 2-year decade problem must be resolved. It's a human rights issue. It will amount to genocide if they leave it unattended.
Tsepo, I saw comments and you say it's not about politicking, but I did see comments from the DA's spokesperson on utilities in the city of Tshwane also making inputs on this situation. And it seemed that from that person's perspective, part of the problem is that some areas actually have no water flowing out at all. And we're talking here areas that are meant to be part of the Phase 1 of the project.
I hope by DA you are not referring to ex-MMC of Utility, Themba Fosi, because I went to Rayval with him. He is part of the problem. He mustn't try to be smarter now because he's no longer in power, trying to campaign. I'm not going to allow, I'm not going to allow any political party, I don't care how big or small it is, to campaign using our people's lives. I've got sisters and brothers, biological siblings who are staying and residing there. I'm not going to fold my hands listening to the likes of Themba Fosi coming to media as if now they want to be the messiah. He is part of the problem. He was the MMC of utility. He actually told me that he owns that plant. So I asked him a question when I was there with media to say, when you say it's your plant, are you also claiming the lives that the people that died there, that you are part of the problem? So I'm not going to entertain any politicking on this issue. It's a human rights issue, Thulasizwe. It's very, very sad that people now are turned into guinea pigs.
That is exactly the person I was talking about. So, Tsepo, what's the way forward then? How do we get this solved in the immediate, future, such that the water is restored to a level of confidence similar to what we saw a few weeks ago?
I'm going to start with asking the president of the country and the minister of water, Phemima Jordina, and politicians the question on air. When you kill these people by not resolving the issue, who do you hope to vote for you in 2026 when you try to politicize it? Because you can't be killing people and expect them to be voters. Don't kill your voters. Be smart. Be smarter than this. That's why I realize that politicians are not very smart. So I'm urging the president of the country and the minister to immediately intervene, because there's 450 million which is managed by DBSA for that project. Let them go and use that money. It is our money. I'm talking now on behalf of taxpayers. It is our money. It can't be misspent or misused for other things. We need that water to be clean today. You know, this human rights violation is rife, Thulasizwe. If I can just give you an example, today, as we speak, in Atteridgeville, City of Tshwane is going to the clinics to make people to make arrangements at the clinics. Imagine where people are seeking help, medical health attention. They are going to have some campaigning at the clinics. Can you really go to the clinic to talk about municipal bills? Does it make sense?
Sure.
So this thing, when I compared with Hammanskraal, it's a human rights violation. And Human Rights Commission must actually communicate with me. We need to get to the bottom of this thing this week, not next year. Thank you very much, Thulasizwe.
Thank you for that. That's Tsepo Mahlangu, who is part of the Lotus Atteridgeville Soulsville Civic Association.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Jazz lovers, the wait is over. Africa's grandest gathering returns on the 25th to the 26th of April at the Cape Town International Convention Center. Experience 2 nights of soul-stirring jazz, electrifying collaborations, and over 30 world-class artists across 4 iconic stages. Don't miss this unforgettable musical experience. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.co.za. Brought to you by Independent Media, proud media partner of the Cape Town International Jazz Festival.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's have a conversation. Let me start with a call from Lester in Cape Town. Good morning to you, Lester. You've been listening to the conversation around Tafelberg and the themes that it raises around spatial planning in Cape Town.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking my call. My name is Mr. September. I'm the chair of the Forum of Cape Flat Civics. I'm also the deputy chair of the Greater Cape Town Civic Alliance. These two organizations cover the whole of Cape Town, but as the Forum of Cape Flat Civics, we specifically focused on the Cape Flats. So it's a nonsense that what the city and province is saying, that apartheid wasn't based on location, and because that's what they're implying by their statements to the courts, right? If we look at, and it can be seen most glaringly in terms of your unemployment rates in Cape Town. So we've been relegated to the areas like the Cape Flats without providing, as the consultant from Indefunu was saying, for 30 years any affordable housing in established economic where there is established economic opportunity. And what we've seen there is that there is a causal relationship between high unemployment and the perpetuation of apartheid spatial planning. And that is important to note, because it's what even one of the former ministers, Andre Nel, at national government level, says that there has been inadvertent perpetuation of apartheid spatial planning, where we're not creating housing where people were forcibly removed from or excluded. You know, and today what is required, especially, and we must say it the way it is. We're talking about the city and the province, but it's also primarily a political party issue, a governing political party. Because I've engaged with individuals, officials within the city who is in favor of reversing apartheid spatial planning, as we call it. And so what we are saying, if you look at if you look just from an unemployment perspective, you're seeing that in areas like Greenpoint, you're having an unemployment rate between 2 to 4% because of their proximity to the CBD. But the further you go out, the higher the unemployment rate. In Bonteheuwel, which was one of the areas that people were forcibly removed to, and now has an over 273% overcrowding in that area based on levels of economic opportunity and labor absorption. You have an unemployment rate of almost 59%. But further afield, you can even have unemployment rates of 89%, and that is based on stats that has been defined coming from research that was released in 2022.
Lester, thank you for that. I've got to move on. Thank you for that input. That's Lester.
Let me just say one more thing. Sorry. Even there's other things like there's three things that you guys were speaking about this morning, and it touches on all of that. You were talking about spatial apartheid, you were speaking about congestion, and you were also talking about sewage, right? Now, if you look at the amount of people that's been thrown to the outskirts of South Africa, of Cape Town, you'll find that, for example, the Cape Flats wastewater treatment works can't handle.
Lester, I've got to move on. I've got to move on. Lots of callers holding on. Thank you for that. That's Lester out in Cape Town. They're weighing in on issues of spatial planning. Gift in the Eastern Cape. Talk to me about crime in the Eastern Cape. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. Look, I just want to appreciate the ongoing efforts by Minister of Police, Minister Senzo Mchunu, and the MEC of Community Safety, Polio Matter, in the fight against crime and also enhancing policing capacity in the province. And look, for instance, we have had many abductions, kidnappings in the province, including extortion cases, and I think these efforts that have included increasing the personnel, police vehicles, and station resources as bear fruit. For starters, there was a 9-year-old girl that was kidnapped last week in East London outside the school gates, and the kidnappers were arrested yesterday morning. Another Pakistan businessman was also kidnapped last week in Gqeberha, and he was found alive yesterday in KwaZakele Township in Gqeberha. And the unfortunate part is that 2 foreign nationals were arrested for the kidnapping of this 9-year-old girl, which raises suspicions about some of the role that is played by these foreign nationals in promoting crime in our country. So I think this is good work by the police, and I want to appreciate that.
Thank you. So you're saying the efforts are beginning to bear fruit. That is gift out there in the Eastern Cape. Let me take a call from Churchill in Mthatha. Good morning to you, Churchill. You want to talk about the Umkhonto weSizwe party?
Hey, good morning, Chula. So, the NK party. You know, some of us saw it coming. We saw it coming, you know, that party is led by the former President Jacob Zuma, and we know the personality he is. But unfortunately, he has allowed his daughter to be in control of everything. But you know what I'm very, very worried about in this order, firstly, is the voters. The voters who voted for that political party hoping for an alternative. Secondly, is the people who sacrifice their own resources. Some of them even resigned from their jobs, you know, joining that political party. And then thirdly, is seasoned politicians who left their political parties and were hoping that when they get to that party, you know, they are going to have a healthy working environment. Unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Those are my main concerns.
Churchill, thank you for that. Yeah, and subtle in that what you don't mention is mentioning those politicians by name, Churchill, but I think we all get who you're talking about. That's Churchill there in Mthatha. In fact, let me take a voice note on a related theme. Someone wants to talk about Duduzile Zuma. Andrew, I'll come to your call in just a moment after this.
Good morning, Tulas, and happy World Radio Day to all SFM presenters. The fake apology of Commander Duduzile Zuma to SG Floyd Shivambu actually opened our eyes and exposed the reality of Umkhonto weZizwe, what Umkhonto weZizwe stand for. I now agree with those who are saying MK Party is Jacob Zuma's family stokvel. Shoti Sinyolen Mafefe Limpopo.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for the well wishes on World Radio Day. Interesting, a lot of people observed that the apology by Duduzile Zuma, Sambudla, did not cover Floyd Shivambu. The extent to which it is adequate for the purposes of avoiding an escalation in terms of the consequences as had been threatened before the apology was issued, I guess you and I will just have to wait and see the extent to which it satisfies the demand that she should apologize and the extent to which she should apologize. Let me take a call from Andrew in Durban. Good morning to you, Andrew. You want to talk to me about municipal corruption? Yeah.
Yeah, morning, Tulas. Yesterday I heard the lady from Corruption Watch, and she was giving us the index of where South Africa is on the corruption index. But anyway, and so I thought I would talk about this. I get a phone call from a clerk in the municipality saying that, look, I'm forwarding your invoice to the next signature. Let's talk. You know, you deposit 10K in my account, and it'll go there. So it goes on, and then it gets to the final signature. Then a guy takes a snapshot of the invoice, not a very big invoice, just over 3 bar. And the guy says, look, this invoice will be paid into your account by this afternoon if you can organize something like half a bar. So I said, what? I've got to pay a clerk to get the invoice to the next signature, 10,000. Then I've got to pay you to release the invoice so that I've done the work, and I must pay R500,000 rand for you to release an invoice. And this is so systemic in that system. I think we should have invite contractors to phone in and see what they're going through to try and get their money from the municipality.
And this is from personal experience, Andrea?
Personal experience. We've got proof that this message was sent. Yeah, snapshot, so brazen, so blatant that, look here, this invoice will be in your account by this afternoon. The funds will be in your account by this afternoon. Just pay up front, and then on the other hand, doing this work for the municipality, we still have to deal with the construction mafia.
Being squeezed from all sides.
All sides. And it seems everybody's in it, right up to the city managers, because we sent emails and emails. They're crippling us withholding funds. We are carrying this municipality to tune about 5 or 6 million rand, and we still haven't been paid.
Sure.
And all they can say is, pay us and we'll get your funds released. Pay us and we'll get your funds released.
Yeah. All right. Just to be clear, Andrew,
to all these departments,
just to be clear, you're not accusing the city. You're not accusing a specific city manager of any corruption or anything like that. It's your perception that it could be involving the whole system. I just want us to be careful around accusing
system,
people.
Yes, absolutely, yes, 100%.
All right.
The whole system.
Andrew, thank you for that. Distressing call there from Andrew. And it's certainly not the first time I hear of this phenomenon. And if you are in the construction space or contracting with municipalities and other entities, please do share your experiences around this. The allegation goes that in some entities, you do have a phenomenon where people will say to a contractor who has submitted an invoice that, I see your invoice, it can take very long for it to be processed, but if you and I have an arrangement in which you pay me a cut, I can expedite. The rot. What do we even say about that? What do we even say about such a situation where As Andrew points out, you are being squeezed by the construction mafia, bringing construction to a halt, demanding a cut, and then when you submit the invoice, even there you are squeezed. How do we arrest that? Share your experiences if you have any experience with this. Let's highlight it and at least uplift it such that it becomes a major talking point. And perhaps, who knows, someone who cares could be listening. Ann Musa with your latest news headlines. Good morning, Ann.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, government has released 31 public properties to the value of 1 billion rand as part of a private-public partnership to release unused properties. Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson revealed this in Parliament on the second day of the debate of the State of the Nation address. There's a fallout in the MK Party's parliamentary caucus between the chief Wapumzone Limani and the caucus leader, Dr. John Hlophe. Some within the party are alleging Hlophe was set up by being given a poorly written SONA debate speech on the 11th hour after he had long prepared his speech, which was ready to be presented. And EFF members in Tshwane will today stage a picket at St. Albans College in Pretoria following allegations of racism at the school. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still heavy on the way to Pretoria this morning. A crash before you get to Brockfontein interchange has forced a queue all the way back through to Samram. The Mike 1 heading to Sandton, pretty heavy this morning from Houghton Estate area up past Melrose up towards Greyston Drive territory. And a crash on Main Reef Road coming in just by Press Avenue in the Central Crown area. So in from Amalgam, there's a bit of an extra way to get through there. A couple of closures you need to know about around KZN. The N2 at Pongola remains closed to through traffic just on the north side of Pongola. Nothing getting through at this stage. There was a truck that crashed into some houses there yesterday. One of those side tippers taking out 2 homes. I'm sure possibly it's related to that. We saw that before, seeing it again with protesting related to that, we think. The M7, quite heavy if you're leaving Pinetown, wanting to get to the Bluff. Traffic sitting from Queensborough down towards the N2 highway. And Cape Town, the N1, very slow. It's this crash taking a while to clear up between the Coburg Interchange and Marine Drive. The N1 traffic back to Plattercliff Hill. Routes joining in like Coburg Road, and the N7 are under pressure. And just quickly, there's a big pile-up, an unusual one, going up to Tableview and Dunoon. Coburg Road from Theo Maria Park past the refinery to Bloberg Road, and behind that Plattercliff Road's back towards sort of De Crendel Circle to get into Coburg Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So we've been hearing from the Stellenbosch FC coach, Steve Barker, right? He's heaping praise and a lot of respect on his counterpart at Polokwane City. Psychological games or genuine,
pushing for
collegiality before the games begin?
Yes, I suspect it might be a bit of both, because Steve Barker praising on the one side and at the same time he's chasing silverware. So it could be a bit of both, and we'll have to find out whether Stellies are playing hide and seek with the top 8, which they're very good at, and that's very good at hiding. So let's give you the preview to this action. Stellenbosch FC coach there, Steve Barker, knowing they'll need more than just home advantage when they face Polokwane City in the Nedbank Cup round of 16 tonight. Rise and Shine have been glowing under Phuthi Mohafe, sitting 3rd in the league, and now they've got the eyes on silverware. Barker calls them effective and admits Stellies must be at their best to reach the quarterfinals.
I think what Polokwane have done this year, they've been effective at what they do. So especially in a player like Apollos, he's a bit of their talisman. He sort of plays in a type of position that he cheats a little bit, which makes him dangerous on transition, and obviously he's smart with his sort of decision making and the quality of his passing. And they've got a solid sort of defense. I think they had a bit of a setback with Matuludi, a bit of an injury, but 2 seasoned sort of centre backs. Pangule in the midfield has shown, and some wingers that have ability. So it's just, they seem to be a tight-knit sort of team, working hard for each other, and just taking the opportunities when they have been presented to them, and being quite difficult to break down. So we have played them in the league this season already, 1-1 game, which we had taken the lead with a really good goal. They got a set piece deflected goal. So they are having a good season. yeah, it's again up to us, our home game, our own ambitions to ensure that we get past Polokwane City on Thursday and get ourselves into the quarterfinal.
That's the Stellenbosch FC coach Steve Barker on the morning brief. You can catch the action live on SABC Sport. Now, cricket, Salman Agha and Mohammad Rizwan broke a number of records. They powered Pakistan to a 6-wicket win over the Proteas in their tri-series match at the National Stadium in Karachi yesterday. Pakistan chased down 352 for 5 that the Proteas had managed to bat first. The result means Pakistan qualify for the tri-series final against New Zealand at the same venue tomorrow, while the Proteas miss out after they lost both their games. Now, South Africa's under-23 men's wheelchair basketball team coach Nico Mitlwe was in disbelief after his side won the 2025 IWBF Under-23 Men's African Championship. The hosts defeated Libya 51-38 in the final at the Mandeville Indoor Sports Centre in Johannesburg. The victory ensured that South Africa successfully defended their African title, and they booked tickets to the 2025 IWBF Under-23 Men's World Championship, which will take place in Brazil later this year. Speaking to SABC Sport, an emotional Middleware admits they have to work harder in Brazil.
Wow, I still can't believe, but they know the boys did well. We're so excited for our next step. Where can I start? No, it means a lot. It means a lot to the players. You can even see how emotional they were. But I can say going to Brazil, we need to work very hard to succeed.
And finally, MotoGP, the 6-time Spanish world champion Marc Marquez set the fastest lap in the first 2 days of pre-season testing at the Bahrain circuit in Thailand, 1 minute 29.184 seconds. The session comes 2 weeks ahead of the start of the 2025 MotoGP season. And that's a wrap. We'll have more speed, skill and a lot more with John Hediker. He takes over with more sport around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
Good morning to you once again in Dowling. Business confidence, you tell us this morning, has remained steady in January. Steady is good, no?
Steady is good, considering
Good-ish.
some of the that we are goodish,
Yeah.
considering what's going on,
Mhm.
So this follows a decade high surge at the end of 2024 and indicates that companies are still somewhat optimistic about the country's economic prospects and the performance of the GNU. Now, this is according to the South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry's business mood gauge, which edged down to 120 from 121 in December, averaging 112.6 points in 2024 compared to 109.6 in 2023. Now, Saki says the new government has created expectations of a more free enterprise and free market economic policy environment, which has contributed to the positive sentiment. Although challenges persist, South Africa has made progress in addressing pressing issues such as electricity shortages and logistics bottlenecks. Reforms at Eskom have helped ease power outages, and the country has seen an increase in import volumes, new vehicle sales, and tourism activity. The latest index, however, was compiled before U.S. President Donald Trump's criticism of South Africa's land expropriation law and foreign policy. And so Saki is warning that impact may weigh on confidence in the future.
So from what you and I are describing as good-ish to something that's decidedly good. Tell me about tractor sales rebounding, and you are saying that this points to a recovery in the agricultural sector.
A really positive indicator on that front, local tractor sales recovering in January, growing 27% to 457 units. This marks the first increase in sales after 21 consecutive months of decline, so nearly 2 years of declines on that front. Right? The improvement in tractor sales is a positive sign for the agri sector, which contributes to GDP, of course. Now, the sector has faced challenges in recent years, including drought and higher interest rates. And, if we remember, that sector contributed to the third quarter GDP decline. When that sector fell 29% in the third quarter. Now, despite the upbeat numbers, though, the South African Agricultural Machinery Association warns that challenges still lie ahead, and the increase in January sales is still below the monthly average of the past 2 years. In a Business Day article, Wandile Sihlobo, chief economist at Agbiz, notes that the decline in agricultural machinery sales in 2024 was due to a market correction after an extended boom between 2020 and 2023. Sihlobo expects some relief for the sector this year with easing interest rates and improved agricultural production conditions to boost the sector.
All right, lastly, Ntauleng, what kind of a Thursday do we have in store in as far as markets go?
So local markets are likely to start the day firmer following global peers. Looking at company news, traders will be waking up to updates from diversified miner South32 and CTM owner Total. Moving over to currencies, the dollar giving up gains despite the hotter than expected US inflation. That's somewhat working in favor of the rand as it holds steady this morning, trading at 18.46 to the greenback. US futures in the meantime are in the green, suggesting that stocks are set to rebound today. And then over in Asia, those markets likely to end the day mostly in positive territory. However, not as high as they were at the top of the morning around 6:30.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauleng Lechela. She's kept you updated on the economy, business and the markets over the last 3 hours here on The Morning Brief.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than scrolling through your streaming app, choosing a show, then deciding against it to rewatch another show because you didn't want to start without your partner and sit through the awkward "I started without you" chat. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
The Buccaneers want to demonstrate that they are the reigning champions and nothing will stop them from marching on to the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Bakhaga have a different game plan to return to Hammanskraal with happy faces. This is the Nedbank Cup Last 16. Orlando Pirates FC tackles Baroka FC. This Saturday, 15 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
All right, let's talk TV licenses. Did you know that paying your TV license isn't just about legalities? It helps fund local productions and creates jobs in the entertainment industry. That means more epic dramas, exciting sports, and news that keeps us informed. So, when was the last time you checked yours? Visit tvlic.co.za and make sure you are up to date. After all, it's your screen, your story. Hashtag your screen, your story.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
16 minutes to 9. Let's bring you this conversation now. Epilepsy Week is currently running until the 16th of February, and it seeks to bring attention to the alarming global treatment gap for the illness. Based on global statistics, 90% of people in need of treatment for epilepsy are not receiving it. This gap is particularly pronounced in low-income regions, including sub-Saharan Africa. Let's welcome into the conversation Dr. James Butler, who is an executive board member of the Neurological Association of South Africa. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. Always important to have these conversations around weeks such as this one. Tell me about epilepsy as a condition. It's described as it not being a one-size-fits-all, in that there are various types of seizures and causes. So what is epilepsy, and how do we understand it as a society?
Well, epilepsy is distinct from what are called non-epileptic seizures. So it's, in essence, it's an electrical storm that happens in the brain and nowhere else. And depending on where and how it happens in the brain, it produces various symptoms and various signs, so what people see. So the symptoms just refers often to what someone feels without there being something obvious to see. And these, again, can vary enormously. And at its extreme end, sometimes people convulse or shake. And that's the outward manifestations of a seizure that many listeners will be familiar with. they're in principle anything that causes trouble in the brain, and there are lots of things that can cause trouble in the brain, including being born with particular genes or tiny little birthmarks like you have in your skin. These things can cause seizures. So it's extraordinarily common. So 1 in 10 people has a seizure in the world. And if you take everybody who roams the planet, about 1 in 26 people will have repeated epileptic seizures, which is what we call epilepsy.
So when you describe it as an electrical storm in the brain, this talks to the intricacies of how our brain works, right? The neurons and, everything that goes on around that. Is that where the trouble starts?
Yes, indeed. So our brains are electrically active all of our lives, and brain cells interact with one another. It's as though people are talking to one another, and at where one brain cell meets another, and of course they're microscopically small, you have the electrical information being passed on. So, and we can measure that at an aggregate level, at a macro level, and we can see these things on EEGs, which is a very neat way of measuring what's happening in the brain during these epileptic seizures.
So given the work that has been done towards understanding epilepsy and treatment and the likes, why is it that we sit with a gap, according to statistics, of 90% of people in need of treatment not receiving it?
So there are a myriad of reasons, and it ranges from access to health care. The treatments, by and large, are very affordable, very cheap at the lower end of the spectrum of many treatments that we've got, and it relates to the distribution of doctors around the world and healthcare providers. There are people who are not doctors who train, for instance, in Africa to treat people with epilepsy, but these are the resources are obviously limited. But amazingly, even in developed countries, and it speaks to it speaks to the stigma of this condition, which is that people are embarrassed about it, and so there's self-perceived stigma and there's societal stigma, and that's a recent thing in the history of mankind, that we've understood these things, and for millennia, and in fact until not even 100 years ago, people had all sorts of concocted ideas about what epileptic seizures represent.
Yeah. In fact, say a bit more about that, Doc. To what extent does it make it difficult, the social stigmas as well as the misconceptions and beliefs, unfounded beliefs about epilepsy? How difficult does it make the task of understanding this illness, but also ensuring that the right conversations are happening around the treatment thereof?
Yeah, I think it speaks to what we said earlier, which is firstly that people need to seek good medical care for this. There's like any other medical condition in the body, epilepsy is a medical condition. There's nothing unusual about it in that respect. And of course, there are a myriad of medical conditions that happen in the brain, including migraine. And so firstly, and the purpose of these awareness weeks is to draw attention to the medical nature of it, and that we understand the science of this pretty well. As all things, there are always knowledge gaps. But even in developed countries, there's a treatment gap, and that is almost certainly at least partially attributable to the stigma. And of course, there are people who debunk science and like to debunk what science attempts to achieve in terms of treating people with this condition, and that is to the detriment of people. So the condition has, for many patients, has a substantial impact on their quality of life, and in about half of people on their mood. And these are things that people walk around with every day. And we need to deal with that at a societal level so that we can change the perceptions and the access to healthcare.
Lastly, Doc, then, speaking of dealing with it at a societal level, many of the conversations about health in this country are happening against the backdrop of the changes that we are undergoing in as far as the National Health Insurance Act is concerned. how centered is the condition of epilepsy and especially the conversation around treatment, access to treatment thereof, in the context of conversations such as the NHI?
Well, in principle, there are at the moment no financial impediments to people obtaining care for epilepsy, and the treatments, as I said, are cheap. The real and they're available at all the clinics in South Africa. So at that level, there is affordability of it, and there is potential access to it. So we need to obviously grow rural healthcare in South Africa. But irrespective of what happens with NHI, people should be obtaining treatment for the condition.
All right, Avgura, thank you for your time. An important conversation to have. That's Dr. James Butler, who is an executive board member of the Neurological Association of South Africa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Crash now on Joburg's M1 North at William Mandela. If you're coming from the Radberg side, just after Malabongwe is where you'll queue into that particular scene. Republic Road across the William Mandela heading into Sandton is quite a heavy backlog as well. Earlier crash on the M1 North at Brockfontein on your way to Pretoria. That scene is being cleared. The N4 going into Pretoria on the Emerald Highway. Also crash earlier near the N1. Basically, that traffic is moved through. Not a real issue at this stage. Durban's M7 is very heavy. Queensborough down towards the M2. If you're down towards the Bluff area, trying to get from Pinetown to the Bluff, that is a big backlog. Don't forget the closure at Cliffdale today, 2:30 until 3 p.m. A 30-minute full closure between Hammanskraal and the M13 Keyridge. Trying to avoid travelling at that time. And Cape Town, the N1 inbound, still waiting to clear away this collision scene between Kubo Interchange and Marine Drive. It means a heavy backlog from Plattercliff Hill. It also means a big queue getting out of Goodwood on the N7 North to try and get into that N1 inbound. Similar sort of story with Kuberg Road queuing up to get in as well. And the other issue in Cape Town this morning, one to avoid if you're heading out to Tableview, Bloberg area, is the Kuberg Road stationary truck at Bloberg Road, on the Kuberg Road going north. The backlogs to Theo Morea Park, and then behind that, Plattercliff Road from the N7 is a big queue down passing the refinery to try and turn into that Kuberg Road north traffic. You could use the N7 as an alternative through that area if you need to access Dunoon or Killarney Gardens. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me start with this voice note. I suspect it has to do with the recent prisoner escape out of Paulsmoor Correctional Center. Let's hear what this person has to say about that.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. Failing to understand that how can someone serving 6 months in prison at Paulsmoor escape from prison while doing 6 months? He's not even doing a year, but escape. Is it the love of being in prison? Because how can you escape while serving 6 months? 6 months is just a small time, and then you escape just like that. And then they're going to add more months on top of that 6 months. I think it's the love of being in prison. It's not about a sentence.
I hear what you're saying. I'm chuckling because you're saying the love of being in prison. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The calculus didn't really work out so well for this one younger Waiti, right? Because now the charges of escaping from lawful custody are being added, which would mean more prison time. Let's listen to this one now on the debate that has been happening over the last few days around Afrikaners and the measures that are being taken by Donald Trump in availing refugee status in the United States.
Morning, Thulasizwe. People must not believe like there was no life before the Afrikaner came to Africa or to South Africa. No, there was life and there will be life. Who wants to go is welcome. They will be replaced so quick by black farmers. Whoever wants to go, please make it quick. We are waiting. Please go if you want to go. Number 4, Brixton.
Yeah, thank you for that. I take the point you are making, but my sense is that enough of the South African Afrikaner voice has risen over the last few days that quite decisively has declared that actually this is our home. We're going absolutely nowhere. Those who want to go can go, but I think the critical mass of Afrikaner South Africans have actually said that, that's not for them. That offer simply doesn't apply for them. And that's separate from, organized organizations based on a certain ideological perspective that may perhaps be that way inclined to leave our shores. Let me take a few of your calls this morning. We've been talking a bit about the phenomenon of absent fathers. In fact, I'll turn to that in a moment. But let me start with Tando in the Eastern Cape. Tando, good morning to you. You want to talk to me about a failed state. What's that about?
I like to take off the guy about the prison break. I didn't think about it. It's so funny.
the love of prison. I also didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, it got me thinking because I was listening to the MK guy who was going on about a failed state. And now the irony of it all, the 9 wasted years actually are the pinnacle of a failed state. And to come out from that plan, it just makes it a total fallacy. But I would love, because there is the hallmarks of a failed state that are currently, underlying the crime, the corruption, the killings, the wanton killings. It's just spread out. It is spread out. It is so glaring, so disturbing, and then it's like business as usual. Some people, they fly overseas, they go to all these conferences, they go to Switzerland, they go to all these, and then they blow about G20 this, G20 that, and then you wonder, are these people really living in the reality of a state where it needs to be developed, it needs to be, things need to be done, and everybody needs to be involved, and
Tando?
Unemployment.
Gotcha.
But anyway,
Thank you for that.
Just me thinking aloud.
Thank you for that, Tando. And I think many people will say we are not at failed state level, but we shouldn't even be thinking about that, even if we say progressively, failing state, even that should concern us even before we get to that end state of the technical definition of a failed state. We should be in that emergency mode that says we don't want to reach that point with all of the phenomena that Tando describes that needs attending to as a matter of urgency. Mandla in Cape Town, you want to talk about the issue of of absent fathers in this country. Good morning.
Yeah, Thulasizwe. That is a touching topic, Thulasizwe. Because I myself grew up as umntana wentombi. That is when my mother got me. They were not married with my father at that time, and I grew up in my uncle's paternal uncle's house. Yeah, you would feel when your friends say your father's your cousin's father. As a boy, you feel hurt by them, and you would wish they would say it's your father. You wish your friend would say your uncle is your father. And when your uncle calls you my boy, you feel good. You've got that good feeling in yourself, and you wish he can say it every day. Yeah, my father would send money, but money is all we need. You need as a boy. You need your parents to be close to you.
Mandla, that is the nub of it.
Yeah, if I was in government, I would dedicate a department that would look on the family.
Sure.
Dedicate money.
All right.
Now they've got a department of women and disabilities and youth. Yeah. But men are excluded in there.
Let's leave it there. Thank you for that. That's a powerful point that you make. And what a powerful way to end it with Mandla's input there about money is not enough. Your presence actually matters. And I suppose, Mandla, some societies, without necessarily having a department of families and fathers, create the conditions in the way that their economies work that encourage for families to thrive. And perhaps that's one area in which we should be thinking, and the direction in which we should be thinking as a society. Encourage the presence of fathers and mothers, give them time in terms of the employment policies and the like, so that they can be present for their children. Thank you for that. What a powerful way to end it. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your engagement. The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana is up next here on SAFM after the news.
In our top stories, Public Works releases 31 properties for redevelopment, and SNDF members remains to be handed over to their families. Good morning. Government has released 31 public properties to the value of 1 billion rand as part of a private-public partnership to release unused properties. Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson revealed this in Parliament on the second day of the debate of the State of the Nation address. McPherson says this approach will enable the creation of over 15,000